Friends, fans, and fine folk, grab your drinks and snacks and come on down to the campfire for this short rest with me and my friend Edward Spence. Hello, Ed. How are you doing? Welcome in.
I wasn't expecting the horn. That was delightful.
Oh yeah. Gotta start with it. Gotta go give you some air horns for this proper celebration of you being here. Thank you for joining me. It's good to have you here.
You too, as well. Because I was trying to think about this. When was the last time we saw one another? I think it was.
It would have been it was in person over in the UK in May. May, I think it was. So a couple months.
May. I showed you my house.
You did actually.
I did. Indeed. I'm not going to dox myself and let everyone know where that is.
Yeah. Tell me the exact address where we were when we last saw each other. So welcome in. Anybody who doesn't know you, brief introduction as to who you are. Who am I speaking with today?
I'm Edward Spence. I'm Ed to everyone. Never ready though. But I am forever GM. Very, very happily so. I'm a game designer as well. As of last year, that is my actual full-time job, which is still very, very strange. It kind of feels like I'm on the other side of the Rubicon. I remember when I went for my first day, and so I worked for a miniatures company, and I remember going to the factory where they make all of the plastic sprues and just seeing them just being made. I felt like Charlie Bucket going through the chocolate factory, and that feeling has never really gone away. But that's me. I'm also a rambler.
Good. I mean, that makes for good short rest, because there's not going to be just dead space, or not going to be too much of just my voice. The number of times that people don't seem to understand that this is a conversation series, not an interview series, and I get comments on YouTube being like, "This interviewer talks too much." I'm like, I'm not interviewing them. We're two people chatting. We're two most often neurodivergent folk who do Dungeons and Dragons for a living.
Famously, very socially adept people.
Exactly. So that's a brief introduction as to who you are. Normally, I like to start these short rests with an understanding of where the name comes from. But I guess with Edward Spence, we don't really have a brand name per se that we can discuss. Do you ever work under any kind of business or understanding of your I don't know, that's not yourself? Like, do you just freelance your Dungeons and Dragons work, your TTRPG work to whoever's paying?
Yeah, I mean, my brand is me, and it feels very strange to, I don't know, talk about brands and such like that. It always makes me feel a little icky. But yeah, no, it is just me. I mean, I primarily come from background in theatre and film, and so it was always like, my name is mine. My name is what I perform with. My name is kind of what I sell myself on, which sounds awful, but like it is me. And I remember when I was very young and I had aspirations of making films and all this kind of stuff. And I remember coming up with I had a short-lived YouTube channel. I don't know if it still exists, actually, but it was Sovereign Studios, and the plan was that I was going to make a whole bunch of films and such, and that never materialized. But I think that's the closest I've ever come to like having a brand that is not Edward Spence. I think. Are you looking it up now?
I'm going to Google Sovereign Studios YouTube. Yeah. Sovereign.
I'm badass that we all look. Look at this adventuring party, everybody. Look.
YouTube. Let's have a look. Sovereign Studios.
Preventing me.
This is thrilling viewing. Two chaps googling.
Whatever the hell I want. Sovereign Studios. There's a Minecraft channel that's called Sovereign Studios. I don't think it's that one.
So, not that one. I think it.
There's actually
there we go.
I can see four different channels.
43 subscribers. There we go.
Hey,
wow.
Nailing it.
There's stuff on there.
You've still got it.
I don't know if I should have shared this so publicly. But yeah, there's... Oh my god, I've got a video on there that's got 9.8k views.
Damn.
Wow.
From 43 subscribers?
Okay.
That's not bad at all.
That's not too shabby.
We'll have to put a link to it somewhere in the description of the podcast so that they...
We don't have to do that. That's okay. That's fine. We don't have to do that.
It's just talking about it publicly. It's fine. People can go through. If they go through the effort of finding it themselves, then it's the reward of finding the video.
Yeah, although I will say there is one video on there which I do genuinely quite like. I'd forgotten about it until now. But while I was still at uni, all of this was while I was at uni, but I decided to do 12 short films in the run up to Christmas. And one of them, I suddenly realized, oh shit, I'm one short. I've not planned for a 12th one. And I was at home at the time, and I was in the middle of editing all of these films. And my dog, dearly departed now, unfortunately, but my dog, Algie, was sat next to me. And I just made a film with him in 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And genuinely, I think it's one of the most moving things I've ever worked on. I'm probably going to watch it in a bit. It's a cry.
Now that you've been reminded of the video's existence. So since we're starting a short rest here, it implies that we are on some sort of a quest or a mission that we need a short rest from. So you're going to help me GM for a second while we world build. What is it that we're doing that we needed a rest from? What mission were we on? Where are we resting? What are we eating and drinking on this rest? What mission were we on?
So I feel we're on a mountaintop. We are surrounded by ruins, and there's a large sort of half-formed arching dome above us through which we can see the sky and we can see the stars. And there's a soft crackle of a fire between the two of us, just like sort of licking our shadows against the ruined walls. And I like to think we're probably fairly low level. I reckon we're in between missions and like Lost Mines of Fandalva or something. Yeah. We're still kind of like wiping the goblin blood off our swords, and I feel we walked away from it a little worse for wear. I think I'm hovering somewhere on 1 hit point. Probably.
One of these where like a goblin crit you and you're like, oh god, kind of thing, and you're like, oh man, I can't wait to get a few more hit points. I had a character.
I just want a magic item.
I had a character once that was a gnome rogue, and I didn't put anything into con, and so I started with 8 hit points, as you know, your D8. And then at level up, I rolled a 1, so I got 9 hit points at level 2. At level 3, I rolled a 1, so I got 10 hit points. I was a level 3 character with 10 hit points. You don't
reroll ones with hit
Not
points?
this character, not this DM. I do in my own games, but this GM was like, nah. And I was like, oh god, okay, I've got 10 hit points at level 1. And I was like, well, that's fine. The dice tell a story. The dice are telling me that this is a squishy character that needs to stay the fuck away from melee. And so I just put everything in. I took the mobility feat when I got to level 4, and I was a scout when I went to level 3 and rolled that other one. I was like, I guess I'm going scout because I've got skirmisher. If somebody ends their turn next to me, I can run away with it as a reaction. So I can be like, nope. No, just chasing around the battlefield. So I had like just insane speeds and like obviously the cunning action to disengage and dodge and dive and whatever else is a bonus action, and I was just like, you can't pin me down on the battlefield because I've got so few hit points. But then one time we were fighting phase spiders, and they just obviously teleported into the ethereal plane, just reappeared behind me and hit me with a crit. And just like straight up killed me because with 10 hit points, even if I'm on full hit points, you only need to do 20 damage to just outright max kill me with no death saves.
So was this your first ever character?
No, not my first ever. No, it was a friend, just a friend of mine. It was a home game for it, and it was it would have been somewhere around 4 years ago, give or take. Yeah, long time now. In fact, do I still have his mini? I think I've got a mini of him somewhere.
Ooh.
No, I don't.
Because who was your first ever D&D?
My first ever D&D character was it the wizard? It was the wizard. Yeah, it was. He was also a gnome actually. It was a wizard gnome. No, sorry, my very first ever was for a one shot. So I got into D&D through board gaming and just getting really into board gaming. I started watching Will Wheaton's tabletop series. And then he did one episode of Dragon Age TTRPG. And
nice.
I watched them playing that, and I was like, that was my first introduction to TTRPGs. I was like, this looks fun. They're just improvising stuff and making things up. That's fun. And then something in my head, obviously from the zeitgeist, had gone, isn't that what Dungeons and Dragons is? Isn't and I just met a guy who said that he does Dungeons and Dragons, really sheepishly. Like I knew him for several weeks of going to a class before eventually he opened up and kind of like came out as a dungeon master. And I was, because obviously expecting a lot of stigma around it and stuff. So I was like, actually I think that's what Dungeons and Dragons is. Maybe I'll get in touch with that fella and ask him to run me a game. So I did. He ran me a game. It was a one shot and it was a pre-gen character. Tukamil the elven monk was my first character. And it was like heroin in the veins. I was like, whoop, got to have more of this in my life. That was incredible. That was fun. Never ran me another game with it, so Tukamil died. Tukamil died of neglect. And then my second character was the dwarf, the gnomish wizard. And I killed a hill giant on my first game as a level 1 character.
Hell yeah, gnome wizards.
Single-handedly as well, almost single-handedly, because none of us knew anything about it. The DM didn't know enough to like successfully hint to us that this was not to be tackled at level 1. It was like oh, we're in a town and there's sheep going missing. Go and explore and investigate. So we explored and investigated and found a sleeping hill giant in a cave, and we were like, I guess we got to take this out because he's kind of led us here. But he said afterwards he'd intended for us to like understand that that's clearly too big for us at this level, go back and do like side quests or going back and tell the town, and when we go back to tell the town we found out that there's something else going on, so we deal with that, and then we eventually, like a few sessions later, we'll kill the hill giant. But we didn't know any of that. We didn't know that the hill giant was not, meant to be tackled as 3 level 1 characters. So we were like, let's go for it. And so it's asleep, so we've got the advantage. It's got stalactites above it, right? In the cave. Okay, so if I hit it... I've got magic missile, apparently. So if I hit the stalactite with magic missile, and then it'll drop the thing on its head, and then there's rope, and there's this, and there's that, and we had this ridiculous plan. We also had... I was looking at my inventory, like, what's in here? And I got my rope out and some pitons, and I was like, pitons? What are pitons? Climbing things that you can dig into rocks. So if I nail one side of the rope here and nail the other side of the rope here, and then we can, if the stalactite doesn't kill it, then we can lure it out of the cave and it'll trip on the rope, and then we can hit it. So we had this like Gumby plan. We went in there and dropped the stalactite on it. He graciously was like, I guess I'll do this much damage for it. And it did like 50 damage to the 110 hit points. So it already was done 50 damage to its 110. So it was down to 60-ish. The tank of the party, who was a half-orc monk, I think, he just ran in and just got one-shotted because you have like 8 hit points at level 1. And
Sure.
And hill giants do 3d8 plus something damage with their clubs, so just
something like
smeared
that.
him into a bloody mist. The goblin was like, I think before the tank ran in, he threw the fastball special with the goblin, who also got smashed. So the two of them just got splattered. At that point, I realised, oh shit, I don't think we were meant to take on this guy yet. So one of the spells that I had on my somewhat pre-generated sheet was Ray of Frost. So I just hit it with a Ray of Frost and ran, and I think I dropped some caltrops right next to where the makeshift tripwire was. And so it stood on caltrops and his speed reduced, and then with Ray of Frost you reduce their speed by 10, and then he tripped on the thing and fell, and then I just kept running away and hitting him with Ray of Frost and running away and hitting him with Ray of Frost, and I managed to keep him just slow enough that he couldn't catch me until eventually he died. And then my mate's like, all right, well, I guess you get however many 1,000 hit points for killing a hill giant, and I was like,
Sure.
oh, that's enough to level me up to jump over 2 and into level 3. Like, if if I split some of that, if I just go to level 2 and ignore the rest of the experience points, can I use the rest of them to like bring my friends back to life?
Bring my friends back.
It was gumby and crazy and fun, and yeah, it was a good time. How about you? What was your very first character?
So my first character was my first in with role playing at all. So, it was 2017, so 8 years ago now, and yeah, I just got into a new relationship, and my then partner basically said, "Hey, I played D&D with my friends. Do you want to come along? Like, you act. It's basically just improvisation." And D&D was this thing which I'd always been aware of it. Like, you know, it's so enmeshed in pop culture. I think especially when we were growing up, like a lot of the stuff that we watched from the 80s bled into the 90s, and so as a result, like it was something that I'd always been aware of, but I kind of thought was a relic of the 80s.
Yeah.
And but you know, I grew up loving fantasy and games and like Warhammer and sort of modeling and things like that, and so it was something that had always appealed to me, but always felt very inaccessible. And so I got invited to a game. So I remember beforehand we very, very quickly made up a character, and I was just inundated with numbers and modifiers and stats, and I was like, I don't think this is going to be for me. Actually, this seems like a bit much. And the group that I joined, that they'd been playing as a home game for a while, but they had transitioned into podcasting, and so they were actually recording. So they were like,
God.
"Oh, by the way, this is going to be recorded. Don't worry about it." And so
your first time ever playing D&D is recorded for posterity.
Was content creation. Yeah, it set a terrible precedent moving forward.
Is it still available? Can people watch it? Can people listen to it?
Oh, maybe. Oh, it's so bad. I can't remember what it was called. I'll try and remember it and let you know. But yeah,
I mean, it's pretty cool that you end up doing it for part of your living, and the first time ever doing it is actually caught recorded.
It's very surreal because I remember being sat there. So my character, because I was so nervous about magic. Because I was like, oh, that feels like something very complicated. So I'm going to create a character that has a grudge against magic, like specifically doesn't like magic. So he was this dwarf called Flint Hookbeard, you know, real classic fantasy naming conventions.
So sort of name where you go, I don't need to know that he's a dwarf in order to know that he's a dwarf.
Exactly.
I just need to hear his name.
Like name thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so I created this, like, I got really into like the backstory. I wrote this like 5-page document, and just sent it to the GM. And I remember playing the game, and it was like a door in my brain, in my soul, that I had never been aware was just kind of standing there.
Yeah.
I suddenly had this key in my hand, and I unlocked it, and it just swung open, and there was like this whole facet of me that I didn't know existed. And I remember looking into the void, and the void looking back and going, you're gonna be doing this for the rest of your life. And I remember fairly shortly after that, I want to say a week later, the GM kind of took me to one side and was like, hey, have you ever considered running this? And I was like, I don't know how this game works. I don't know. But I was interested, and he was a forever GM, and so I was like, well, I'd quite like to give you a break. And so this game that I was really falling in love with, I was like, okay, where do I start? And so, you know, the accepted wisdom was Knights of Fandalva. So I took that, and we got a group together. And so my second time playing D&D, after like a couple of times as a player, was was GMing, and for a time, and I want to say for maybe 3 years, I only had one character, because after that point I was only a GM.
Yeah, only GMing. Well, you
but,
have one
but
character,
yeah.
and then you have a million characters just like that, because you
Yeah.
get NPCs, and you like, well, now I'm every,
But
every character.
But I genuinely think like that, and maybe this is why I like, and we'll probably get into like, because I'm interested to hear kind of your view on GMing as well. But I think that was definitely a part of it. I was like, why be one character when I can be many?
I mean, man, everything you're saying is just like just exactly how I feel about it. Just so much that, like, I've said the same sort of sentiment about DMing and my story getting into it as well. Like, I was into it. I was suddenly hooked. I've never thought about it as like a door unlocking to myself, but I have talked about how for a while after I kind of gave up on pursuing acting full time because it wasn't really bringing me joy anymore, and I went back to university, I found D&D at the same time and thought for a while that D&D was kind of scratching the acting itch, because I was like, oh yeah, I get to kind of perform and be characters and silly voices and stuff. And then after a while I realised it was the other way around, that acting had always been scratching a D&D itch that I didn't know existed yet because I didn't know that it was a thing. And then after finding D&D, I was like, oh, this is going to be my life. This is going to be something I'm doing for the rest of my life. So that definitely understand. And then you say again, like the why be one when you could be every character. I always enjoyed that about acting as well. I remember there was an acting workshop I did where somebody asked me as like homework question, essentially, like, what is it that makes you want to be an actor? And the best answer I could come up with was that I only have one life to live, and why do I want to be a doctor for my whole life when I could be a doctor today, and then I can be an astronaut tomorrow, and then I can be a father of 3 in this role, and then I can be a criminal in this role, and then I can be everything if I'm an actor. And that was one of the things that I always loved about it. And I think it's also one of the things I love about GMing, because I can be all of the roles. I can be a shopkeeper, and I can be a gruff, one-eyed, orcish bartender, and then I can be a dwarf that's over here doing this thing. Yeah, it's something that I love about it, putting all these different characters and coming up with all the different characters too, and deciding like what's going to differentiate them, and how am I going to in an instant allow my players to understand that they're talking to somebody different now.
Because what was your in? We'll get back to me, but I'm interested in you. What was your in with GMing? Like, what was when you were like,
again, like a very similar way to what you said. I was in this game with the wizard and the hill giant and stuff. We did like 3 or 4 more sessions. The guy was the guy running it was like, took me aside and was like, hey man, you ever tried running a game? And I was like, no idea how to do that.
You need to get me out of here.
Basically, I was like, I've no idea how to do that. And he goes, well, you've already got the books, right? Because, like, as I say, it was like fucking heroin in my veins. I played that first one shot as Tukamil the monk. And I asked the guy, like, can I borrow your PDF, your PHB? And he's like, no, but here's a PDF of it online. I was like, cool. Read the whole thing cover to cover like it was a novel. Learned pretty much everything and absorbed all of it and just remembered it. Later found out I'm autistic. I was like, that makes sense. that tracks. Yeah, learned the rules of the game just back to back. Just got heavily invested. I was like, I'm buying it, and I bought myself the Dungeon Master's Guide, the PHB, the Monster Manual. I was like, let's go. Even with no intent to actually run it, so I just had them. And then my mate took me aside and said, do you want to maybe consider giving it a go? And I was like, sure, let's do it. And so I just threw myself into the deep end. So I'd played maybe 6 games of Dungeons and Dragons before I ran my first game, and then from that point I was like forever GM. My friends at the time were like, you're an excellent like, this is a calling, like you're an excellent dungeon master. And I was like, psh, get out of here. I didn't know that I had anything special because I hadn't played with that many DMs, so I didn't know what the sort of average game was out there. I was just comparing myself to like Matt Mercer, who I was watching in Critical Role Season 1, and I was like, this is incredible. And I was modelling my style of game after his style of game, and I really enjoyed it. And so like it took me quite a while. It took me until I had like a public audience with Viva La Dirt League for me to sort of really acknowledge, oh, I do have something special here. Like, I do have some talents that actually like, I've got a set of skills that tend to lend themselves to being a good dungeon master. Like the acting background and my mathematics background, and like the understanding of storytelling and character arc, and then also understanding analytics and maths and balance and understanding game design and those sorts of side of things. And they just came together to be like, yeah, I think people would want to watch this. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I've got something there.
Yeah, it's strange though. Like I find myself describing like role playing generally. So my family truly don't understand what I do, right? And it is a very surreal thing to kind of try, especially when you're like, no, this is what I do. Like this is what I do, not just like for fun, but like I do this as a means of creation, but also as a means of work. And that is a very strange thing, and occasionally it's a very surreal, because I think we lose it. Like as kids, like we play all the time, and what we do with role play is an extension of what we do as kids. Like I have this very core memory, and for me, it's kind of the epitome of what role play is. But I remember running around the garden with my friends, and one of them pointing at a tree and just shouting, "Come on, let's go climb that tower." And we all just ran towards it. We started climbing it. No one questions. No one questions what it is. Everyone's like, "Yeah, we're climbing a tower." The
brain of a child is like so primed for everything that they then have to try and teach back into you again, like acting and improv, of like the yes and everything. It's like you don't need to teach kids that. They just know it instinctively, and then we beat it out of them. Society and nature and expectations of how you should behave, and just like beats this shit out of you. But you start knowing improv, you know acting, you know, like you give any 5-year-old a stick. What have they got? They've got a sword, they've got a gun, they've got a walking stick, they've got a walking cane, and they're an old person. They're whatever you give them anything, and they're like, well, cool. This rock is now a Pokeball, or this rock is now whatever.
Yeah, but it's also it's a means of healing as well. And I don't know. There's this whole thing about like role play. And role play isn't therapy, but it can be incredibly therapeutic. But I think that's what play is for kids as well. Like kids play so they can understand the world, and that's the external world and the internal world. And at a certain point, we are told that that's childish, and to leave that behind, and to kind of stop questioning things. And I remember that. Again, this is another core memory, but I remember the day I realized I wasn't going to play anymore. And I had this very dear friend, Hugo, and I would go around his house all of the time, and we would play Lord of the Rings Warhammer. We would watch films, and we would run out to the field nearby, and there was this little kind of mound just outside the fence that surrounded sort of his garden, and we would always run to the top of it, and he would always be Legolas and I would always be Aragorn. We're obsessed with Lord of the Rings. And I remember this one misty day, and the skies were grey, and I think we just turned 13, I think. And I remember going round to his house. We played Lord of the Rings Warhammer like on as you know you do as kids, so you're like kneeling down on the ground and you're just moving stuff around on the carpet, and then I remember we had lunch, and then we went outside, we ran to the edge of the garden, we hopped the fence, we jumped up this mound, and we climbed, we got to the top, and we just took this breath in, and we both realized we weren't going to play that day. And it was unspoken. Right. But I remember we got to the top of the mound, and we just looked out at this misty horizon, and there was just this silence for a minute. And then I remember him just going, "Shall we go inside?" And like, that's something, like we talked about doors earlier, it was like this door suddenly closed, and I was like, I can't do that anymore. Like, I can't play. And I think I'm kind of going off topic now, but I think there's a big reason why, like, because so many industries are really struggling at the moment and really dying. But gaming is one of those things which is growing. Right. And I think a big part of that is like there was such a boom over lockdown because suddenly people were alone. They were faced with a world they didn't understand and they couldn't comprehend, because how could you? Yeah. Like, economically, like, politically, and let alone the fact that we literally couldn't leave our houses. And I think suddenly people were like, what tools do I have to understand this new world that I have, and this new internal one that I have? And it was play. I can't remember how we got onto this, and I'm really sorry. I've completely derailed this entire thing.
Not at all. As I said before we started, this doesn't have a structure to it. It's just us talking for 2 hours, sometimes 3. So it's just,
we're not railroading GMs either.
We're not railroaders, yeah, exactly. Now you got into it because you were saying like you just remembered the time that you decided to stop, that you needed to stop playing, like you couldn't play anymore, and how it's a little sad that the kids kind of reached that stage. I'm surprised that it even took you to 13, to be honest, because I remember myself. I had a really good friend growing up that lived across from me. It's funny how your friends when you're growing up are just proximity based. They're like, oh, they live nearby. They live nearby, and therefore they're my friend now. No, he lived across the road from me, and he was like 3 years my junior, and so I remember feeling. The shame, I guess, is a word for it. The embarrassment of realizing that he was more mature than me, because I still, like, I remember the day that he wanted to start playing football and stuff, and rather than playing superheroes, and how I kind of felt the external pressure to feel shamed of the fact that I still wanted to play dress up and superheroes when I should be moving on to wanting to talk about girls and play football and stuff, and that was disappointing.
Did you have siblings? Or?
I do, yeah, 2 older siblings. They're twins. They're 3 years older than me, so they'd moved on to other things long before. But that's fine because they're older. They're meant to be moving on to other things.
See, I had the inverse. I'm eldest sibling, right. And so there was that kind of like living vicariously through play through my siblings,
right?
And kind of longing for that as well. But there was this also, and I also, like, my parents divorced kind of like just before that as well, and that was very messy and very complicated, and I'm not necessarily going to get into it now, but like there is also that, like, when you're, and it sucks because you do have these kind of awful patriarchal norms, but there is that thing where it's like, right, I'm the eldest boy in the family now. And so now I am, the man of the house, which means absolutely fuck all. But like suddenly there is that kind of expectation that you put upon yourself because it's what you think society expects of you, and so yeah, it was like players gone. And I would read a lot. Like I would read books, I'd read comics, and
I was a big reader.
Yeah, and I'd like do little voices to myself when I was on my own, but like God forbid anyone else heard those. Like they were for me, and
I would do the little voices as like part of joking around. I think that's part of growing up in England, or maybe just the part where I was in Yorkshire, where like it's part of the culture that you take the piss out of everybody else that you can, and so you're used to you're quite familiar with taking the piss out of Scouse people in the jokes by putting on your Scouse accent. Taking piss out of people from down south and doing down south voices, and like so people ask me,
that is what we sound like, yeah.
As like, people ask me like, how do you what made you so good at voices? I was like, I don't know. I think it's just a talent that I had that I was unknowingly training through doing Englishman, Irishman, Scotsman jokes, and so you've got to put on the Scottish voice when you're doing the Scotsman part of the joke, and I think I just got used to doing that kind of thing.
I like the explanation of why you're so good at voices
Because
from mocking people.
Yeah, mocking people. Yeah, mocking people and trying to mock them more accurately. Needing to accurately mock people, and so I got better at voices by doing it. I'm almost distracted by how much love there is for you in my chat. By the way, you're a very charming guy, and you've got a lot of people's hearts. There's a lot of people in my chat being like, "I fucking love Ed." Yeah, everybody loves Ed. He's a very lovable guy.
Very, very sweet. This is why this is why I don't have chat up. No, as though I'm expecting that.
I don't need to be distracted by that.
So I am interested, because this does bring me on to, so with GMing, so most of what I do, I prefer it when it's pre-recorded,
right.
But a lot of the work that I've been doing over the last year, I'll plug it, has been with Wounded Warrior Project, which is a company based in the US, and the branch that I work with specifically is in Los Angeles, and they raise money for veterans and their families. So a lot of what we do is TTRPG related actual play, but it's streamed live. Now, it's important for us to have chat up in the background so that we can see like donations, and you want a little bit of audience interaction as well. Because that's part of the thrill of the live stuff. However, I can't have it up, and I know this is like purely kind of like a little bit of a neurospicy thing, because I'm like, I will just be looking at that the entire time, and my mind won't be like here, like in this space, and making sure that this for the players, like that fictional space feels consistent. But because I was going to ask, like, is it primarily live or primarily pre-recorded that you do?
Split between the two.
And which do you prefer?
On Twitch, I am entirely live, so all my streams are live and interacting with the chat. When I first started doing Twitch, I had to ask myself, what is the point of using a live streaming service if I'm not interacting with the chat? Sure. And that's where the idea of Twitch Tales came from for me. Twitch Tales is a series I run where it's an interactive game where the audience, the chat, is hive mind collectively controlling the actions of the main character of the game. So there's a single character in the game. It's a solo campaign in that sense, but it's a solo campaign controlled by 100+ people sometimes. And so I run polls. I've got thumbs up and thumbs down emotes that are nice and visually different, so that I can just ask like a binary question. If you want to go left, put your thumbs up. If you want to go right, put your thumbs down. If you want to punch this guy, put a thumbs up. If you want to try and persuade him, put your thumbs down. And then people can chuck the emotes in, and I can see, okay, most of you are wanting to obviously XYZ, so we'll do that. And if it's a choice that can't come down to a binary, then I'll put it into a Twitch poll of like 5 options. So that whole idea for Twitch Tales came about through me going, if I'm going to run Dungeons and Dragons as an actual play on my Twitch, what's going to set it aside from being anything else? I don't necessarily want the logistics of trying to organize a team of people to play at a regular time every day, because life inevitably gets in the way of that. And I was like, okay, so can I do something on my own but using the chat? And it came about through that. And then the other side of things is when I'm doing the thing that I'm more known for is being the Dungeon Master for Viva la Dirt League, and so that's all pre-recorded.
Where did that name come from?
Viva la Dirt League. Apparently they got it from. They were all big video gamers. They were playing StarCraft, I want to say. They were playing some kind of video game where there was in the game. I think it's a massive multiplayer online thing, or I don't really know the game, but there's a lot of people play it, and there's a set of leagues that you can get in, like tournaments on it, and there was like the Diamond League, the Platinum League, the Silver League, the blah 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 blah, and they were joking around that they're so shit that they're the Dirt League, that there's one even lower than that. They're the lowest of the leagues. They're the Dirt League, and then they were just like Viva la Dirt League, and that's where apparently they got the name from. I like that. They've been doing it for a long time. They've been going for over 10 years now, I think, as Viva.
So you joined them.
I joined. I'm a freelancer that works with Viva la Dirt League. So I'm not part of Viva la Dirt League officially. I just freelance for them as a dungeon master. So they have a very successful comedy sketch channel. That's the main body of their work. They've got over 7 million subscribers on that. Wow. And they make comedy sketch about video gaming. So like they've got one about PUBG that is just like PUBG logic essentially, where hand me that backpack over there, and he goes, what do you mean hand it to you? And then he's like, and then he has to take off his own backpack to put on a backpack, because PUBG you can't just pick up items and walk around with it. You've got to equip it when you pick it up and all this. So like little jokes about that stuff, and they were really successful. They also had a series called Epic NPC Man, where it was about like what would it be like if the NPC of a massive multiplayer online game like World of Warcraft, what if they were sentient and aware of all of the adventurers that run through and force them to buy like shitty garbage from their pockets and stuff. Like, I'm just going to a shopkeeper and I'll offload this broken chair and this 3 different wolf skins and blah blah blah. And like it was told, and it's a comedy sketch told from the perspective of the epic NPC.
I feel like I've seen some of
you
these.
Definitely would have. They're like on everything, and they've been around for so long that it would have popped by you on Facebook or Instagram or whatever these days. Because that was set in a World of Warcraft sort of high fantasy world. A friend of mine, well, mutual friend of ours, Mike, he got in touch with both of us and said, I think that you as a really good dungeon master and them as their really popular comedy sketch series set in a high fantasy world, I think that you've got something there. Like these guys should do Dungeons and Dragons content for their thing. I think it would go down well. So he set us up, and we decided, yeah, let's run a one shot. We ran a one-shot game that was barely D&D, really. I kind of homebrewed heavily, just like to simplify it, knowing that none of them had ever played before. I gave them some characters that could do what they do. Like one of them is a sorcerer character in that series, so he was obviously a sorcerer type. But one of them's just a garlic farmer shopkeeper. And so there was no like class that worked for him, so I just made something up and was like, you've got a table of items that are potentially useful, and as a shopkeeper you can just roll whenever you need an item for something. You need a gun, you need a rope, you need a whatever, you can just roll a d20, and the higher you roll, the better quality the item you have just in your shop, and you can just pull out a bag of whatever you need kind of thing. So I made this like one shot for them, ran it. They really enjoyed it, but the production quality, it was right at the tipping point of their main channel, where they were about 100,000 subscribers or something, and they were like, we're getting quite popular now, we need to start thinking about cultivating and curating what's actually going up on our channel. I'm not sure that it's quite the quality that we want for it. So they put it up on Patreon. People loved it, and they were like, oh, okay. We'll do it again, and we'll make it for the main channel, but we'll do it when we've got like a decent budget for it. Coincidentally, at the time, Wizards of the Coast were reaching out to random creators left and right to advertise the Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. And so they got in touch with us and said, hey, we'll give you, I don't remember what it was, 40 grand or something to like film it properly, and, to film something and promote like Baldur's Gate. And they were like, all right, that means we can hire the green screen studio that we wanted. We can hire like a proper lighting and camera crew team to get this done properly. We can pay Rob for his time. We can this and that and the other. And we can then, and they were like, what we'll do is to give ourselves like a bit of an edge, a bit of a unique selling point, we'll film the table session, and then we'll film ourselves doing cutaways of being the little minis on the table, like acting it out in costume and stuff. And they were like, cool, that sounds fun. So we did that. It was a 9-part series, Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. The Wizards of the Coast gave us the PDF that wasn't quite finished yet, and said, and you know, NDAs and everything, and said, we want you to do this. And I was like, we're doing 8 half-hour episodes. We're doing a 1 4-hour game. Which parts of it do you want? And they were like, yes. And I was like, Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus is a campaign that runs from like levels 1 to 13 or something. It's a lot. It's one of the long modules. You go to hell, for Christ's sake. And they were like, yes, fit that into a 1 4-hour session, please. I was like, cool. Wow. Which characters are important to use? Yeah, all of them. Like, what the fuck do you want from me? Okay, fuck.
But so look, you got to play a whole bunch of characters, so you know.
I did. So I started them at level 4. I did like a couple of quests with them real quick, and then I jumped them to level 6, and then I sent them to hell. And if you watch it back, it ended up in 9 episodes rather than 8, so they got their money's worth. And then on top of that, it's just the most railroady I've ever been as a dungeon master. And unfortunately, it meant that a lot of people who, if that was their first introduction to Viva la Dirtly D&D, it meant like people saw it and went, this DM's shit. He's railroading you hard. He's not giving you any He's not giving you any choices, any of this and that. And he's not letting you like have time to just to play. And I was like, yeah, I don't have time to let them have time to play. I've got to move them on. I've got to get them to hell within 20 minutes or we're behind schedule. So it was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed the campaign that's out there. But it did get put onto their main channel. The main channel was pretty big by this point, and the audience was like, they were used to having 3-minute comedy sketches about stuff and not half-hour episodes of them playing D&D. And so the audience was very split, and they had the people who loved it really fucking loved it and was like, more of this immediately. And then the people that it wasn't for them were like, no, fuck this isn't what you go back to doing PUBG. And so the guys kind of thought about it for a bit. We had a meeting at a cafe where we discussed it and said, you know what, I think it had enough audience excitement from the people who liked it to do a second channel spin-off. And so they started their second channel, Viva la Dirtly D&D, and we started playing a long-form, open-ended actual play campaign where I could let them just explore and be themselves and enjoy it. And that was 5 years ago, and we are now at episode 246 of it, with 4 episodes to go. We're in the final fight, airing right now as we film this. It was filmed back in November but cut into half-hour episodes, and so it's the last 4 or 5 episodes are going up, and it's the culmination of an entire 5-year campaign. They went from level 1 to 17. And they're fighting basically a god.
Any teasers about how it ends, or?
There is a death. I'll say that.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I won't tell you that it's one of the characters.
Player death is hard. Though. Player death. I've only had to do it twice.
In the chat freaking out that it's spoilers. I said, you know me better than that, everybody. I'm not gonna give anything away. I just said there is a death. I didn't say it was one of the fucking character deaths. Could be the main bad guy that they're fighting.
Stray pigeon, you know.
Yeah. The magic missile just hits some rat.
It's like that recurring gag in Hitchhiker's Guide where Arthur Dent keeps on accidentally killing animals.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing being reincarnated each time. But no, character death, obviously, we've not confirmed whether it's character death or not, but I think it's interesting. So I've only had to deal with character death twice, and both of those... They were planned. Like the dice told a story, but they were ultimately planned. So right. I remember one. It was a long form campaign. My second one, set in this gothic homebrew setting called Mornvale, and it was very kind of like drawn from Castlevania and Mordheim and a lot of like old like John Blanche and very. Sort of Grimm's fairy tales kind of imagery. But one of our players and one of my dearest friends in the world, Sam, who is responsible for most of the Wounded Warrior Project shows that we put out, but she had to step away from the series, and we kind of agreed like when her final episode would be. And we were like, maybe the character dies, but we're not necessarily going to plan that. But I am going to give your group like a very almost impossible to win combat. Yeah. And the dice ended up aiding that. But right. we'd kind of gone into that knowing this is a very real possibility. Like the rest of the group don't know that. They know that right. You're not going to be here after this episode, but they don't know what we know, which is that your life is potentially on the line. Mm-hmm. And it ended up being this incredibly poignant, like I rolled like 2 natural 20s in a row. It was like this dragonborn vampire.
Yeah.
And Sam was literally playing, and this made it harder, but was literally playing this child who was encased in this sort of 6-foot oaken armor that was just being torn apart until all that was left, like as lightning was like crashing around this like stone bridge, and the rest of the group like literally couldn't get there, as just like this tiny like 10-year-old child was just being held there. And it was like it was really sad, but like it really served as this impetus for the rest of the group to basically get revenge on the big bad. So that was the first time I did character death, and the second time it was a 4-part miniseries that I did last year, called Black Star, using Soul Muppet's Orbital Blues system, which is phenomenal. For those of you who've not played it, I think I have it here. Yeah, here it is. But yeah, it's basically if Cowboy Bebop was a role-play game. You're sad space cowboys. But yeah, in all of my session zeros, we go through Lines and Veils, and we go through romance preferences, preferences regarding how we deal with sex in game, but also death, and are people happy with it? And one of our players, another very, very dear friend, Dylan, the host of the One Shot Network, which you should absolutely go and check out as well. But he messaged me and was like, I think I definitely want to die. Like, this is a 4-part miniseries. I want my character to die. And this was the first time that Dylan and I had really interacted outside of like a few sort of social media interactions, and I messaged him immediately afterwards and was like, hey, do you want to start the series with your death? And then the rest of the series is basically like a flashback up until that moment. And it was so interesting for me as a GM, like watching that unfold, because we started with that, and we recorded 4 episodes over 2 sessions, all pre-recorded, like these punchy hour-and-a-half episodes. And I remember we got to the finale, and suddenly all of this imagery started coming back, like the red lights of the alarm.
Recognize the setting and recognize the people. Yeah, like, oh, this is it. This is the moment that I died.
And the worst thing was that the players had forgot. They had forgot because like Dylan had imbued this character with so much life and so much like just this lust for living and love, and every single person around that table had just completely fallen in love with this character. And we got to the final moment and everyone was like, I forgot this is how we started this entire series. And it was so interesting because I don't know, the characters that we play are so personal to us, right? And I think obviously we have to be aware of bleed at all times, and I think there's a lot of interesting discussions happening about that in the space. But regardless of like how detached you are from a character or not, I think it's very interesting when you make a decision that is going to be the arc of your character. And I don't know, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this. But obviously, as a GM, like, it's not your character. Like, you grow to love that character, but you are kind of the custodian of the story around that character. You are the custodian of their story, and there's a tremendous amount of responsibility for that. So I'm interested.
I think I'm on the same page as you, because I have control over so much stuff as the Dungeon Master, and the only things that I don't have direct control over is the players and the player characters' choices, and so and so that's their purview, and I don't want to take that away from them. I don't want to take away player agency. I've worked around things like even just the stunned condition and the paralyzed condition and stuff in my games, because I don't want to just wait 20 minutes in a combat and it comes back around to you and you're like, oh cool, can't do anything, or I roll a death save and that's my entire turn. And so a lot of my house rules are about giving them something they can do on their turn at least, because that's all you've got. Like, I've got everything else. Yep. I don't care if you stun my character, because there's other minions I can use. Like, I can do other things on my turn. But you have only got your thing, and so when it comes back around to you, you should be able to do something. So like, I've got house rules about when you're at 0 hit points, you're not unconscious, you can move, but you can only crawl, and you're dying, and you can even still take an action if you want to fail a death save in order to do so that it gives people the option of being like, here's a heroic last stand moment of like, I'm gonna crawl over here and I'm gonna pull that lever. You're gonna fail a death save. You're exerting yourself. There's blood spurting out of you because you're doing something rather than holding this wound or, focusing on getting to safety. You're now firing arrows or whatever. Even if that action is like healing yourself, then that's fine. You can heal yourself. You'll fail a death save before you heal yourself, and because you fail a death save, you might get a lingering injury, because that's another thing that I use in my games, just for a little bit more drama of like, if you're failing death saves, there's a chance that you're gonna wake up and your fingers are broken or you're missing an eye or something. Sure. Gives them a little bit more like, okay, do I want to take this action to heal, to whatever, or if I choose to not do anything, then I can just roll my death save as normal, and that's fine. That's their choice then. At least it's not the game telling you can't do anything this turn. And so a lot of my stuff is around that. And even when it comes to character death, I don't use a lot of player character death in my games. Like, I put them in dangerous situations, but I'm a DM that's much more inclined to use a bit of plot armor or a bit of Deus Ex Machina to try and to get them out of a situation, or not like maybe capture them instead of kill them, because I feel like as their characters and their decisions around their story, them deciding when their character dies in that story is important as well. And here's an exclusive for the people who don't know this in my chat. There was a character death at the end of one of the Viva La Dirt League series that we ran, a small series called Tales of the Misfits. It was 49 episodes, 7 table sessions, and one of the main characters died. One of the player characters died at the end of that. And what we haven't announced before is that was planned. It was planned between me and her. The rest of the people at the table didn't know it was going to happen. But I've never mentioned before live that was actually a thing that she knew was going to happen, because she came to me and she made the choice, like you were saying before. She made the choice. I want my character to die at the end of this. We don't see many character death in these series that we run with Viva. I think it's going to be poignant. I think that my character's run its course. Like, I don't really want to play this character again. I think she's done all she needs to do. She's achieved her arc of what I wanted from her, blah, blah, blah. And also, she wasn't going to be there at the green screen session that we needed to film for that. And so she was like, practicality and logistics as well, like, kill me off at the start of this session and blah, blah, blah. And so I set it up. And I was like, okay, that gives her telling me that she wanted that for her character means, cool, now I can work with her, as is my job as the Dungeon Master. I can work with her to tell the story she wants for her character. She wants to die. I'm going to put her in a situation where it's very possible for her to die. Not only that, though, I'm going to give her a very poignant, character-driven moment that makes story sense for her to sacrifice herself to save somebody else from her character's story. Long story short, they were fighting a werewolf, and I was like, this werewolf's immune to damage. They were fighting a werewolf on a pier. He was a pirate werewolf. They were fighting on a pier, and I set up. You can't do damage to him. He's immune to non-magical damage. He's immune to this and that and the other. You don't have silvered weapons. And then her long lost brother, who thought that her character was dead and she hasn't seen him in for 7 years, he comes running onto the scene, and the pirate captain turns to him and goes, you know what, I'm not going to kill you, I'm going to kill him and make you watch. And then he's going to run away and kill her brother, and she makes the choice. I sort of very poignant to her, and was like, you have the option of grappling him as he makes a run away. You can try and grapple him and attack of opportunity, and then you remember he's immune to damage, but that doesn't mean he can't drown. So she grabs him, grapples him, and just tips them both off the pier into the water. And then for the next 3 rounds, she's drowning, he's drowning. They've got the same constitution score, so they're both going to drown simultaneously, because they can only hold their breath for 2 rounds, and then they drown on the third. And I give them the choice, and I was like, every round. And obviously the rest of the players at the table don't know it's planned, don't know it's happening. And even though I say it's planned, like, she asked to die, she didn't know how it was going to do it. So we can still, the rest of the it's still improv storytelling. It's still collaborative storytelling, because I'm the only one who's got a plan of how it's going to happen. I'm then presenting it with her, and she's like picking up on it as we're going and going, oh shit, oh yeah, this is how we're going to go, this makes sense, I'm going to sacrifice myself to save my brother. And sure enough, she does so. She drowns and kills the captain at the same time, because one of the ways to kill a werewolf, drown it. Its immunity won't save it then.
Especially in storytelling, like, death means something, and it should mean something. Like, death defines the life of a story, I think. And there is this kind of myth around the idea that it's the GM versus the players, and I've never been a big proponent in that, because it kind of suggests that you're trying to cut short their story. And I've thankfully I've not really sat at too many tables where this has happened, but I've certainly been told about tables where someone's character just like dies to like just a combat that doesn't
just a random
mean anything.
Encounter.
Yeah, and it's like, but what thematically, like what does that mean? Like, you encounter some wolves in a wood, and you just roll poorly, and then you die, and it's like, oh great, well, I guess roll up a new character. Like, it is so unsatisfying. And like you say, like, there is an element of plot armor to it as well, but like, you're telling a story. Like, even in, like, it's such an obvious example, but even in like Game of Thrones, where you have characters that do die, like, there's a meaning to that. Like, there is a reason why those characters die. And yeah, I think the idea of, I'm going to create a really dangerous... And there's definitely a room for that. Like, there are those people who are like, yeah, just kill my character and make it as,
make it feel like there's a chance of death in every encounter, which is fine, because that's their choice. Again, as long as it's their choice, basically. So if you have chosen, and that's one of the questions I ask in a session 0, I ask, like, how frequent do you want combats in this sort of a game? How dangerous do you want your combats? How much roleplay, how much whatever. I ask like, basically describe a D&D game, a perfect D&D game to you, and that's the sort of thing that I'll ask. And if one player at the table has said, I don't want combats to be that dangerous, I don't want my character to have a risk of dying, and somebody else has said the opposite, I can go, that's fine. That's not really a disparity I need to worry about, because I can just, in every fight, I'll just go for the guy who wants dangerous combat. I'll put him in a lot of peril and make sure that he's the one that enemies are targeting, and I'll try and avoid as much as I can the one that doesn't want a dangerous combat, because it's their choice for their characters, that's not the kind of story they want to tell. It's not the kind of game they want to play. Some people like to play games where they can breeze through it at easy level. Some people play the Dark Souls games. It's entirely your choice. And I think that the character death that happens randomly is also, it's useful that we live in a world of high fantasy magic and stuff, because death isn't necessarily the end of the character, it's not necessarily the end of the story, because there is established worlds of afterlife in Dungeons and Dragons, and there's resurrection magic, and there's all of that sort of thing. So there was once, early days as a dungeon master, where before I had a lot of experience in it, I did throw a random encounter at some home game that I was running, a bunch of gnolls. They were way more dangerous than I expected them to be, but mostly just because of the dice. Like, they just kept rolling terribly to hit them, and the gnolls kept rolling crits on them. And one character went down to 0, was making death saves, and then failed a death save and got 2 death saves in one from a nat 1, and was like, cool, that's my character dead. And I was like, oh, wasn't expecting that, wasn't anticipating it. I didn't want it to happen, because the way that I tell my stories is I've inspired, like, their backstories and their characters is what's inspired the arc of the campaign in the first place. They're so heavily tied into it, because I'm always asking myself, why these people? Why are these people the only people that make sense to go on this quest? Why don't they go to the local tavern and just offload the coinage to be like, go and do this quest for me. You're a higher level wizard, you're an NPC that's clearly some, you've got levels behind you go do it instead of me. But no, it has to be you, because you're tied to the story. So if a character dies in one of my games, it makes it difficult on me to be like, oh, fuck, now I need to somehow tie somebody else into this story. So in that moment, I was like, cool, this doesn't necessarily need to be the end. The warlock character pleaded out to his archfey patron he'd just turned to level 3 or 4 or something and gotten his Book of Shadows. And he goes, what's the point in all this if I can't even save my friends? And I got him to make a persuasion check. He got a nat 20 plus his Warlock Charisma, whatever stat. And they were in a forest, and so Archfey makes sense that he would have someone listening. And I was like, yeah, in that moment you see just like a flitter, just like a puff of sparkles nearby on a branch, and you realise that something was watching you, like a little fairy or something. Nothing seemed to happen for like a good minute or so as they went about their business trying to work out what they're going to do with this body. Maybe if we drag him to the nearby town, we can get a cleric to resurrect him, blah blah blah. And then one of the trees just opened up, a portal opened, the Archfey guy stepped through. Just like, this is my merry gentleman character. He's a Archfey warlock that's been in my game for a long time. He just stepped through, wordlessly picked up the body of the other guy and walked back out into the tree and closed up behind him. And they were like, "Fuck, what?" I guess my persuasion worked in a way, but I don't know why. And then they eventually like just carried on. They got to the next town, and when they got to the next town, like a satyr just came out of a fountain or something and was like, "Hey, follow me. The merry gentleman wants to see you." And they were like, "All right." And they went through there, and eventually they ended up at the merry gentleman's house, I think he was, and he'd had Seed's body, the guy that died. They had his body just like laid out, and he was like, I was going to do this alone, but I think it'll be better as like a bit of a ritual with you guys because you know him better than I do, yada yada. And so he started like this resurrection ritual that I'd stolen from Matt Mercer of like everybody, instead of just cast raise dead, and they're raised dead because then death kind of feels meaningless. Instead, it was like you each get an option to add to the ritual, and then I roll to see if it's successful, and you've got to try and persuade them to come back. And so then it was like a poignant moment. Then they could have character-driven story and stuff, and then they brought him back to life, but it didn't feel cheap. It didn't feel like it undermined the death. And what's more is I then give the character playing Seed, the player playing Seed, I gave him the option of like having a lingering effect from that, and he was like, "Oh yeah, absolutely." And so he was. Because he was killed by gnolls, he had like a curse essentially of being revived that every time he tried to wild shape, he rolled a d20, and if it was a nat 1, instead of whatever he was trying to turn into, he turned into a hyena and lost control of himself. And so it had that like lingering effect of having been killed by gnolls, and specifically because of the lore of gnolls, they are anything that they're killing. The souls are being claimed by Yinogu, the Gnoll Lord in the demon planes, and so he's like eating the souls that they're killing. And so this Balgura, because I was switching between them as they were playing, I kept switching over to the guy playing Seed to keep him involved in the game, and I was describing what he was going through in the afterlife. And so he was like in this meeting room where like all the souls are sorted into where they're destined for, and he was getting shepherded off to like where his soul was meant to be. But then this big Balgura, this big ape-like demon, came by and like grabbed him and was like, "Nope, you're coming with me." And he was like in the fist of this massive demon, being like, "What?" And he was like being dragged off towards Yinogu, and then he started to hear the voices because I tied it in with like, oh, and then they got to the ritual and they were saying like, "Seed, we're not done with you yet, and you need to come back." And they're using what they're doing with the resurrection. He's starting to hear those voices and being like, "I recognize that voice. Who is that?" And then the ritual was successful. I turned to the player and say, "Is your soul willing to return?" And he was like, "Hell yeah!" so he got whipped out of the grasp of this demon, and because the demon was like denied his soul, he was left with this curse of like, there's a chance you turn into a hyena instead of what you want to turn into. So I think that death still has meaning, even if it accidentally happens in random encounters. You can still find ways to continue the story, especially in a world of magic and resurrection.
Now, see that, dear audience, that's an award-winning GM right there. That's award-winning GM.
Stop! I don't like to talk about the Dungeons and Dragons.
It's like right there behind you.
I don't like to mention it. I'm too humble.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, whoops! Stumbled. Whoops! Oh, sorry. I think earthquake.
No!
No! Careful! Oh, I just grabbed the first thing that I could just to stabilize myself. World's greatest dungeon master. Oh man, I didn't mean to bring that out. I don't like to mention the fact that I won the
shiny
award.
as that. So for my birthday, my very first. You know how you always create an NPC that's meant to just be in passing, and then suddenly it becomes the focus of the party. So I remember my my very first D&D group. They came to Baldur's Gate, and I can't. I genuinely can't remember. It's been so long. I can't remember the name of the tavern they went to, but I do remember its proprietor, and that was a little goblin in a red dress and an apron with messily applied makeup by the name of Granny Fungus. My players were obsessed with Granny Fungus to the point she basically became their contact in Baldur's Gate. And for my birthday, they commissioned an artist friend, Evo, who's an amazing artist, but to do a portrait of Granny Fungus. And this is her. She was so lovely. She was so wonderful to them.
It's always the ones that you haven't put any effort into at all. You're like,
Granny Fungus. I mean, come on.
Yeah, you've like thought about the characters. You're like, okay, they might meet the mayor of the town, so I'll think about them. And they're probably going to meet a couple of guards. I'll give them some names. And then they get to town and go, I want a tattoo. Is there a tattooist in town? And you're like, yeah, sure, there would be. Sure, yeah, you go to a tattooist. He's a half-orc man called Berg Dingleman. Berg Dingleman. What's his story? What's his whole backstory? Is he married? Has he got kids?
Do you have kids?
Does he? Yeah. Do we? What are you? Sure, I've got 2 kids. What are their names? I don't know what their fucking names are. Why are you? Go to the mayor. I had his kids left. Had his kids. They even had plot hooks. Yeah. What's your favourite fear? Yes. So I AJ's in the chat saying enjoy the statue until August. Because I'm not nominated for Best Dungeon Master this year at the Crit Awards, but AJ is, so I might have to hand this award over.
Relinquish it. Yeah.
She can pry it from my cold dead hands. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it at all. I refuse. So what were we talking about before all of the NPC stuff?
Absolutely no idea. I remember, so just to give a little peek behind the curtain, folks. So before this, Rob was like, yeah, we'll do like a past, present, future kind of thing. I feel like,
we'll see.
I'm going to say it. I think I fucked it.
That's how it goes. So so you got into D&D, it's 2017. That was the first introduction through a podcast.
Yeah.
You then, you started DMing very quickly. You started doing Lost Mines of Phandelver. Did you actually finish it, or were you like
no?
In the way that every single person ever does with a module, they start it and then eventually start homebrewing stuff instead. Is that how it happened?
Well,
with you as well?
That was it. I realized very, very quickly. I was like, this is fun, but it's too stressful. Because I think for me, I was looking at this module, and I was like, and it was a home game. Like, we weren't doing anything with it, but I was there, like, sleeplessly, like each night, like pouring through it, because I was like, if my players ask me anything about that NPC or how this relates to that, like, I've got to know. Like, I've got to know this inside out. And I remember we got to the end of the second session, and I was like, I'm going to be really honest. Like, I don't think this is for me. But I think I could make something out of nothing.
Yeah.
And I think I could make something out of backstories. And so we played one final session where we just made everything up. And it was one of the most chaotic sessions that we'd ever done, because we were like, we may as well just wrap it up. But then after that, we took a couple of weeks, and now that I'd kind of gotten over the fear of GMing, I got them to make their characters and like send them over to me.
So it's not that you modified what you were already doing with the same characters and just kind of turned it into a homebrew. It was like, start again, new fresh characters.
Yeah, completely brand new. I just was like, I really want a fresh start, and we'll set it in the Forgotten Realms, we'll set it in Faerun, but I just kind of want to like add my own stuff in there. And I remember our first session, and we got to the end of it, and all of us just kind of like just paused, and we were like, man, I kind of wish we'd recorded that. and we put it out of our mind, and we kept on playing it as a home game, and it was fun, and it was lovely, and we would meet every other week, and we would cook, and we would eat, and we would play, and that would just be our routine every other week. And after every single session, we would always go, wouldn't it have been great if we'd recorded that? Ha 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 ha. And then it got to the stage, I think it was like 10 or 12 weeks in, and one of the group, and it was his very first time playing D&D, and he's such a dear friend of mine, this intensely talented cinematographer called Billy. Billy just, like, we were joking, and then he was like, I mean, I've got camera equipment. Do we want to try this? And so we thought about it, and we talked about it, because we were like, we don't want it to change what it is we do. We're doing this because we enjoy this. And does it change things putting this out for an audience? Because I'm a big proponent in, if you are sharing a thing with an audience, there has to be a reason for that. It has to be more than, here's just some friends who are just rolling dice. Like, and that's fine. There's definitely like a space for that. But I think especially as the scene of like TTRPG actual play is kind of growing into its own medium, I think it does need to be more than that. And so we talked about that, and we were like, no, I think we can do something with this. So we did exactly the same thing, but we instead of meeting and doing one long session, we would meet and we would film 2 shorter episodes. And a friend of mine, Peter Flint, he composed some original music for us. So we had that as well, and we had this. We recorded this intro, and we were dungeon manager. That was our thing. We were dungeon manager, because I remember whenever I went into work, and the duty manager was on the schedule, it would be DM.
The DM.
And so those two things were always conflated. So naturally we became dungeon manager.
It's funny as well. Even if you go to GM, it's general manager at that point.
100%, yeah. So I've never been able to, like, when I was working my everyday job before I got into game design, truly that was all I could think. But so we did that for a while, and then I genuinely can't remember how it happened, but I ended up in talks with one of the folks over at Wizards of the Coast, and they and I was like, hey, here's our stuff, like, maybe you'll enjoy it. And they got back and they were like, yeah, we'd love to host you on our Twitch channel. Like, this is this is good, and we would need to see, like, we would need to see how you do in that kind of environment. So would you like to do a one-shot for us? So we did. We did a one-shot of a module that I'd written called Sky Heist, and we did that. And then we basically kind of did a soft reboot of our show. We did brand new season, episode 1, kind of like filled in the gaps as we went along. It was a continuation of the story that we'd been telling since it was a home game, but now it was intended for a new audience. And so we were recording in person. Like, we would meet at my flat, and it was very, like, it was very bare bones, but there was like there was something about filming in person that was really beautiful, and I think quite unique as well for a lot of stuff that was being recorded at the time.
Right.
That wasn't like in a studio, obviously. And then lockdown hit, and we made the move to virtual, and that ended up working really well for us. And we continued with our series, but then we were also doing one shots. So we did one for Mythic Odysseys of Theros, and we did a 3-parter, which was my first delving into horror, which was a lot of fun, for Rime of the Frost Maiden.
Right.
And then I remember it was over lockdown. I received an Instagram message from someone called Glosk, who was running a D&D actual play called Cantrip Breakers, and she just messaged out the blue, and I almost missed it. It was in my kind of spam Instagram for ages.
Right.
And it was just this message just saying, hey, we've seen you on the Wizards Twitch channel, and we really like what you do. Would you like to come and like run our campaign? And it was the middle of lockdown, and even then, like, I was like, I don't know, it's a lot of work, like DMing for no money, and like I put a lot of effort into it, and I think 2 of these could break me, but thank you. And she got back and was like, oh no, we'll pay you. And I was like, oh, brilliant, yeah, amazing, yeah, done. And so yeah, so I started on that, and that
was that your first professional Dungeons and Dragons?
It was. So it was all basically the way it worked was viewers would donate, and when the donation bar reached its uppermost limit, I would have to just make something happen in game into the story. But I'd watched a couple of like charity shows where there was a very similar conceit, and a lot of the time with that, it's all about the bit. It's all about like chaos. It's like you reach the total amount, and one of you turns into a potted plant, and I was always very much of the opinion, like, anything that happens that derives from chance, I think still needs to have narrative weight, and it needs to have that. There's a reason that needs to happen, and it should feel tonally coherent with everything else that's happening. And so we did that, and that kind of, there was this it was my first time running a live game. Everything else up until that point had all been pre-recorded, and that live setting, it felt very akin to, because I was still an actor at that stage, and I was doing a lot of theatre, and it had that same thrill where you have that connection with the audience. And even though, again, I didn't have chat up, but like you could still kind of feel that, you know, you could still, like, I'm like, we're talking now, I'm very aware, like, there are people like kind of chatting and commenting and stuff. And even though like that's in my periphery, there is something very thrilling about that, and to know that you are in that moment, you are telling that story, and it is having a response, and people are reacting to it, and yeah, off the back of that, like, it just kind of, I don't know, I tend to joke that I've done that classic white man thing of failing upwards, but genuinely, like, I have fallen into so many of the opportunities that I have, and you know, I'll give myself a bit of credit. Like, there has been a lot of work and a lot of sleepless nights, and but I have just been incredibly lucky. Like, through that show, I met another very dear friend of mine, Harley, who set up another TTRPG actual play. That was all about using different roleplay systems outside of D&D. And I remember they left Cantrip Breakers, and I was like, it's really sad to see you go. Like, I love playing with you. And they were like, oh, I love playing with you. I want to poach you for this. And I like, so, and initially the idea of working with different systems was very daunting because I was used to D&D where, oh my god, there's so much to learn. And you, Rob, are remarkable in this regard because like you hold so much in your mind, and I just can't. I can't like I am such a vibes driven GM. The idea of like memorizing what spells do and stuff. But yeah, and through that, Stories Told was the name of the channel, and we did a number of different.
And that's still up. People can find it after they're done finding Sovereign Studios. They can go
Sovereign Studios.
They can go to find Stories Told.
I believe so. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's on YouTube. I think, or Stories Yet Told. I think it is on YouTube. But it had a different name on Twitch. I can't remember. But through that, I ended up like our cast was full of like people who I was so aware of, and I never imagined that I would be sat at that kind of table. And then that's how I met Sam. And Sam was like, "Hey, I want to play with you more." And then Sam started working at Wounded Warrior Project and was like, "Hey, I'd like for you to run these charity actual plays." And through that, like I ended up working with so many incredible people like Bet Godsey, Crit Bard, Blizzbear. Speaking of, Blizzbear has a GoFundMe at the moment.
At the moment, right? I just saw that this morning.
Yep. So go check out his Blue Sky. Donate if you can, please. But yeah, met Blizz, and through that I met Jasper William Cartwright of Three Black Halflings fame, and we're now writing a game together. So it is very much like it's strange, right? Like it is that the community is, I think, what makes this industry a very strange and a very special one because it is very insular and it is very very close, but it is very much like who you know and who you make stories with so much dictates the kind of work that you make. And I think you very quickly find the people with whom you find that instant connection of I want to continue telling stories with you, because
I definitely
it's
agree.
special and it's vulnerable.
Because with the Castleton project over on Winter's Tales that we met through, like that's another one that was like there were so many people involved in it, and I didn't interact with nearly half of them because there was like over 120 creators. But the ones I interacted with, I could quite quickly tell, oh, you're somebody that I want to tell stories with. Yourself included, like you, the scenes that we had together was like so quickly apparent that like, oh, Ed tells stories like I tell stories. He sees things in the same way that I. And talking to you today, like it's quite clear that we have a lot of elements where I feel like kindred spirits about how we approach things, how we think about things, how like even our experiences with D&D so far. And so I'm like, yeah, you can pick out people that you go, yes, I'm going to end up telling stories with you in some capacity or another, and then that opens other things because you end up telling a story with somebody, and then there's somebody else involved in that you didn't meet before, but you meet them through that, and you go, oh, I want to tell stories with you as well, and then you include them in some project, and then somebody else gets involved that you've not met before, and you're like, oh, you meet them as well, and then you just meet these connections, and then there's the conventions as well, Gen Con and PAX Australia and stuff. You meet people through those. You end up inviting them onto some panel, and through that you meet somebody else. And it's a nice industry. I enjoy the community and the community feel of the industry because it's niche. It's niche that people would expect like a Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop roleplay content creation to be a pretty niche thing, But once you get into it, you realize the niche is actually still a massive niche. There's still a lot of people. I've been doing this full-time professionally for 5-6 years or something, and there's still people,
which is incredible, by the way.
Right? What a crazy world that I can live. What a weird time to be alive, where you can make a living, pay your mortgage, and travel around the world based on the money that comes in from Dungeons and Dragons. But even doing it full time as my career, I'm still meeting people that I'm like, oh, who are you? Are you a new, small, up and comer? No, you've got over 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. How have I never heard of you? How is there so many people? How is this niche so big that there are so many people doing things that I still meet new people every single day?
But I think it's interesting, having come from kind of more of an acting background, where I think it can be very cutthroat, because ultimately a lot of people, and there is an element of collaboration in there as well, but ultimately there is a finite amount of roles out there that around 20 of you are good for, and you're all trying to get that same role.
Yeah.
And that can lead to and lend itself to some very very toxic behavior and very I think very antagonistic relationships. And while I don't think that is absent from this industry, I think it is such an inherently collaborative thing, and it feels very, for lack of a better word, very grassroots, where the work that you produce is only as good as how generous you can be around the table. And I think people learn very quickly, like, you listen, and you yes and we respond well to one another. You were using Castleton as an example, and like seeing just the sheer width and breadth of people who were involved in that, who had that skill, was remarkable. But I think it's interesting, while there is definitely an element of, I think this is going to be the same in anything, but there is an element of clout chasing sometimes, where people are like, oh, I want to work with that person because of their influence or their name or their reputation or what have you. But ultimately, like, that relationship is not going to work unless you can vibe with one another. But also, like, it is mutually beneficial, because if you're producing something good together, if you're producing something of worth together, it is that whole rising tides and ships and all that kind of stuff. Like, it does feel inherently more community driven. And I don't know, maybe that's quite naive, maybe.
I also think it's a cultural difference as well, because I have noticed through traveling a lot and visiting people in various cities around the world doing Dungeons and Dragons content and stuff, and collabs with various people from different places, that there is still a definite distinct difference in how it feels in different places. So that in Los Angeles, I'm thinking specifically, the D&D scene in Los Angeles feels, the TTRPG scene, I guess, feels a lot more Hollywood influenced, because of the nature of where they are and the nature of the fact that most people doing TTRPGs in Hollywood are also actors and writers and doing that side of things. And so what you were saying about the sometimes insidious nature of, like, the two-faced nature, the backstabbing, the sort of the like, oh yeah, promising the moon and then never delivering, and those sorts of things that can come along with the film industry, do seep over into the TTRPG industry of Hollywood, I've found. Unfortunately, because there's a lot of people there that's like... I found that my time in LA, I'll say, I was left going, this isn't feeling like the sort of community that I'm expecting of TTRPGs. And I was much more comfortable returning to New Zealand and returning down under, returning to, like, being more directly every day involved with Australian and New Zealand creators, and UK creators actually as well, because I don't find the same sort of nature of from the UK creators. And it's not that I'm saying like, oh, I hate everybody in LA. Not at all. Like, there's some fantastic creators there and people that I'd love to, jump at a chance to work with if I got the opportunity. It's just that the vibe around the different communities, the TTRPG communities, it's not like there's one vibe for the global community. It's like everywhere still has their own kind of feeling, their own influence. Even just outside of LA, like there's a lot of other like Canadian and US creators. They not present themselves, they conduct themselves differently than other creators I've found, which is I can't really put a finger on what it is that's different about it yet, but I have noticed that there's not just one size fits all with it.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know, it's odd because like so much of the work is remote and virtual as well, and I think it is a very interconnected community as well, which I don't know, I think especially off the back of lockdown, I think was very quite reassuring, honestly. Being able to immediately find so many like-minded people where you're like, I just kind of like to tell stories with dice, and then suddenly hundreds of other people going, oh, us too.
Oh, I like that.
I don't know. It's nice. It's sort of, I feel like a lot of people who do this now probably, quite like awkward, lonely kids. Maybe I'm projecting, but I think
fair to say that a lot of us will have similar backstories.
But I do think that there is a real sense of community that I don't think can be overstated. I think.
Yeah, and I think it's out of necessity because we are relying on people. If we're doing it as a career, then by definition we are relying on people watching us, people enjoying the stuff that we make, people like, and there's an element of what you enjoy from watching a live musician or a movie that's different to watching an actual play TTRPG, because there's one of the things that people will gravitate towards TTRPG over, and it's something that I wish I could remember who said it that kind of first brought this to my attention as to like one of the big differences. They said, no matter how much budget you have, no matter how good your production value is, your actual play TTRPG is never going to rival a Marvel Cinematic Universe new movie, right? So if you're aiming at trying to tell the same sort of story in the same sort of way as being like a cinematic movie, people are just going to go watch the movie. Like if they've got 2 hours to kill, because time is a limited resource, and so people can't infinitely consume everything that's out there. So they have to pick and choose what they're consuming. If they're going to choose a movie over you because that you're striving for a movie, that's one thing. But the thing that's going to make them choose the TTRPG over the movie is the sense of friends around a table telling a story together, like the live element of the improvisation element of it, and the nature of these are friends telling a story around a table, and that's what you can't get with watching movies, and so the type of audience you're going to look for, you need to cater to them and the elements of what you're going to get from it. And by definition, that's going to cater to having that's going to encourage having a community value, a community feel to it with your audience as well, which is why I think the collaborative nature of telling the story is going to lead to community within the creators themselves, and then also the nature of who it's going to attract to watch it is going to create a community feel with the audience too. And so you're going to have community from the creators, community from the audience. I think it's no surprise as to why we end up with very thriving discords for the people watching our stuff that love being together and talking about the stories that have been told and discussing the latest episodes in great detail. And I think it makes a lot of sense.
So I'm interested because obviously, you've been doing this full time for a long time now. What is, for you, what is the proudest you have been of a complete story, like beginning, middle, end, would you say?
I mean, ask me again in 4 weeks' time, and it'll be the one that's just finished. At that point, the 5-year campaign
just
that I've run
time
with Viva La Dirt
commitment
League.
alone.
I'm proud of, because I've obviously finished the Viva La Dirt League stuff. It was filmed back in November, and the green screen was done by December, and so like that was, from my perspective, that is a complete story. It's just not all out there yet. But that is one thing that I have to be. I think that it would be disingenuous to choose anything over that as like the thing I'm proudest of, because it was a 5-year story that started as an open-ended, who knows how long this thing's going to go, in a world that's not mine, which is a weird new challenge for a dungeon master as well. Like, I wasn't the one creating it, I wasn't the one home brewing or world building it. It was in their world and their IP, and I'm telling a story in it, and so I have to keep continually go, have you got anywhere that's like a volcano in the area in this world where fire giants might live? Because I need to hit you against some fire giants or whatever. And then I have to incorporate that. And anything they don't tell me, I can flesh out the details for. But then I'm committing their world to canon information that I've set up. Interesting challenges around that. Working with a team that is at various levels of giving a shit about Dungeons and Dragons, like this, from people who are like, among their team, they're like, there's people who are like, it's fun while I'm doing it, and it's good that it's got an audience and got an interest from, people enjoy it, but I wouldn't choose to do it in my own time, kind of thing, all the way to the other end of the spectrum of people who are like actively playing as well. And then having to also cater my DMing style to a bunch of chaos gremlins who are all about making comedy, because it's content, and there is a difference between home games and making something to be watched, and especially if you are cutting that into half-hour episodes that have to have something happening. So my DM style has to accommodate for that. Cool, these guys are going to, if they find something that they think is a funny joke, they're going to harp on that for a bit. If I introduce something too serious, they're going to make a dick joke, try and lighten the mood or whatever. So there's been a lot of learning over that 5 years that I think I'm very proud of. And then on top of that, then we can actually get into the story that I've created and things that I set up in episode 1 and then didn't pay off till episode 500, episode 250, 5 years later. And so there's a lot of things there I'm proud of as well, of like big reveals that are only just happening at the very end of the campaign, and things that I planned for and sat on in silence for several years, keeping to myself. There's a lot of things to be proud of.
Because you mentioned the difference between sort of creating something for content versus a home game. Do you have a preference in terms of like GMing style, I suppose?
It's less. So my preference with GMing style is less about the difference between home games and content, and more about the difference between the different types of players that you can get. So I do have a home game, a GM for hire game that I run on the regular with 5 friends of mine, and they are right up my alley for the sort of players that match my natural style of GMing. In the pacing that they're interested in how much roleplay they're interested in the level of combat and the difficulty of combat. All of it just kind of gels with my natural style. I feel pretty confident that as a DM I can change my DMing style to accommodate for people, which is why I do a very, very in-depth session 0 document of what sort of game do you want, what sort of quests do you enjoy, what sort of rewards do you like for those quests, and I cater the game to what you want. But yeah, there's a home game I've got that just match that perfectly without me having to worry about trying to tailor it to them, because my natural style is what they want. Whereas the DM guy, the Viva La Dirt guys, that isn't my natural style of DMing, but I think I do a good job of it anyway because people are enjoying it. I certainly would be weird if people weren't enjoying it. Yeah, exactly. It'd be weird if people weren't enjoying it, and yet we're still getting the however many hundreds of thousands of views. So I don't. It's not that I prefer home games over content games or vice versa. I think that they're just. I tell you what it is. It's that I enjoy having difference. I think that I don't like just having the same thing in my life every day. I like to go new places. I think that the autism in me likes to have regiment, and the ADHD that I also have likes to have unique experiences. but unique experiences that I can then tick off of a list to satisfy both. So like if I'm going to a restaurant, I'd prefer to go to somewhere I haven't been. If I'm going to listen to music, I'd like it to be one that I haven't heard before. If I'm going to visit a new country, I'd love it to be somewhere I haven't been. And I think the same with DMing, like the fact that I get to do both, the fact that I get to enjoy having home games, I get to enjoy having paid but private games, I get to enjoy having content where I do it for online. I get to do content that's D&D adjacent but not directly actual play stuff, watch parties of the latest episode, that sort of thing. I've got just variety. I consider myself like a D&D variety streamer. I do stuff that's all adjacent to what I do, but it gives me enough variety that I don't get bored of it.
I can understand that. Like, I think it's one of the things I really appreciate about my job is because I think with work, I'm quite fickle when it comes to work. Right. Like, if I'm working on the same thing over and over and over, it's not that I get complacent, but I think I long for something like different, something, and I think to have, to have a job and also, to be able to work in a medium that lends itself to, it's a new adventure every day. It's like new ways of engaging with that. I think, I don't know, it's like you say, it's what you were saying earlier about when you were first describing why you wanted to act. Like, you can be a doctor one day, you can be an astronaut the next. Like, there is that you can flit and you can allow yourself to be a little bit more malleable as well, which I also like.
And even just with preparation for your Dungeons and Dragons games, you can be like, we've done a lot of combat recently. Let's do like a social subterfuge, and I can give myself an interest in being like, let's look at this or research this or whatever. And then you can do world building one day, and then you can do like homebrewing items and magic things another day. You can mix it up a lot if you find what you want to, what parts of it you are inspired by, and then just follow your smiles, as it were. I am aware that we're just breezing through this time. It feels like we've been chatting like 45 minutes and it's been nearly 2 hours.
I know.
So I don't want to be keeping you up all night because of the time difference, and obviously you've got to get some sleep. So let's chat present day stuff. So you moved through your podcast, you moved through Stories Yet Told, you moved, you worked on a whole bunch of things with other people, like the Wounded Warriors Project. What is the more recent chapter of your life? What does it look like that you've been working on recently?
I mean, honestly, like, I'm very much a GM for hire. I'm incredibly lucky in that for whatever reason, I've accrued enough of at least halfway decent reputation where people approach me and ask me to run things for them. So last year, I had Draconics, who is one of the finest producers in the space, and just an absolute gem of a human being as well. I love them so much. But he asked me to run a miniseries for them called it didn't have a name at that point, but basically it was an ode to Over the Garden Wall, an incredible animated series by Patrick McHale for Cartoon Network. And basically it was our love letter to that. We had this incredible cast, two of whom were first-time players, and we created this autumnal miniseries called Beyond the Brook, which I think to this day is one of the... To this day, it came out last year. But
well, that's a lot of days. That's a lot of days that have gone by since then.
As I reach the later years of my life, but yeah, Beyond the Brook. It's genuinely, I think, one of the. It was about sort of childhood whimsy and sort of those tropes of getting lost in the woods, and I kind of saw it as my thesis on why we choose to tell stories as adults, and how we lose the capacity to do that as we get older, and why it is so important that we sit around a table and we roll dice and we tell stories. And finales are hard, and I feel the finale for that show, nothing to do with me and entirely to do with the players around that table, but it is maybe the most fitting end to a story that I've been lucky enough to preside over. So Beyond the Brook was a big one. Probably a big one for me was last year with Wounded Warrior Project. I remember Sam and I had spoken a little bit about wanting to run The One Ring, which is Free League Publishing's Lord of the Rings role-playing game. And initially we'd spoken about the idea of doing kind of a bit of a prequel to the books, like the in-between kind of space, just before Bilbo's party. And I remember it was Christmas Eve, and we were like sending each other reels on Instagram, and it was around 20 minutes into this, and then I'd been, because it was the 20th anniversary of the films coming out, so I was rereading the books, and I was halfway through the appendices towards the end of Return of the King, and I suddenly just, like, apropos of nothing, I just messaged Sam, and I said, this is potentially a wild idea, and I'm not even convinced of it myself because it kind of feels like sacrilege, but how would you feel about us telling the story of what happens next in Middle-earth? And she immediately messaged back and was like, who do you want on the cast? And so so last year we premiered The Fourth Age, which was our love letter to Middle-earth, to the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, and kind of to the tenets of fantasy. Those books and those films are a huge reason why our generation, I feel, is particularly keyed into things like Dungeons and Dragons. We're now 2 seasons into that. We have a 3rd season coming out at the end of the year, which will wrap up that story. And I'm so immensely proud of it. The entire cast has such a love of Tolkien and for those books, and making sure that we adhere to the canon of what Tolkien has set out, but allowing ourselves room to play in the cracks of that. It has been
quite a tightrope to walk, that to work in somebody else's IP that's not there to edge and direct you if you start to stray from it, especially with such a wealth of IP as Lord of the Rings has. For
sure, and people love it as well. And people know everything about it.
Actually, Galadriel did not ever say that, because there was you'd be like,
I had lots of that in my research where I was like, I need to make sure that this is pronounced correctly, and but I'm so proud of everything that the cast did with it and will do with it as well. The 3rd season, I think, is going to be very special, I think. And then we recently just wrapped on another actual play set in a pre-established IP, our Shadows of Gotham, which is set in Gotham City. We wrapped on that, and we have our talk-back episode with the cast on Tuesday. Which would be a lot of fun. But yeah, we had an incredible cast. We had Calamity, Candace the Magnificent, Kappa, Sam in it as well, Valiant Dorian from Transplanar, and just a wealth of guest stars. So in our intervals, rather than wanting any dead air, we did pre-recorded some vignettes with various guests that kind of fleshed out the city of Gotham, and a few of them were playing these dramatis personae from within the city. So we had Nightwing, and we had Batgirl, and we had Poison Ivy and Catwoman and Zatanna, and it was just basically we we reached out to a whole bunch of people, and a bunch of people who had applied to our casting call, and we were like, not for the main cast, but would you like to guest? And we basically just said, give us 3 characters that you would love to play. And based on that, we kind of like went, okay, well, this person could maybe go here, and we can. And it was such a rewarding show to work on. One, because it's a setting that means so much to so many, and I certainly grew up. I mean, you can't really see it, but like all of that's like all comics and Batman. But yeah, and just having the opportunity to play in that space and populate it with the people and the stories that like our cast wanted was such an immense privilege. So yeah, that's kind of been it at the moment.
Tell me about D&D in a Castle, because you just came back from that, didn't you?
I did, yeah. So it was my first ever one.
How did that come about?
So again, it was one of those kind of working with the right people. So for the Fourth Age, one of our cast members was Jasper William Cartwright, and he'd agreed to be in the show just as he was about to have a baby. And I remember in the run-up to it, he got in touch and was like, "Hey, so this whole dad thing, I'm not going to be able to commit to."
Turns out it's quite a lot of work. Nobody's ever mentioned it before.
Although I will say, Jasper is some kind of goddamn superhero, because the work that man produces, the amount of work and the quality, while still being, and I can verify this, being the best dad in the world.
Right.
An absolute superhero. Just a towering inspiration of a man. But yeah, so I was like, okay, can you commit to the last 2 live episodes of the show, and we'll do pre-recorded vignettes to fill our intervals, and that will tell like a little side quest that will then dovetail with the main plot at the end. And this was the first time like we'd ever really done anything together. But I remember we got to the end of our first recording, and we just kind of paused, and he was like, "That was a lot of fun, Ed. That was a lot of fun." I was like, "Oh, good." And he was like, "Have you done D&D in a castle?" I was like, "No." And he was like, "Cool. I'm gonna talk to them." And yeah, like a week later, they messaged, and so yeah, I entirely have Jasper to thank for that. Just telling stories with people that you vibe with. Again, it's. Yeah. But no, it was yeah, and the experience of the castle itself was just incredible. I was there with another first-time GM, Hannah Harper, who's amazing. Go check out her stuff; she's phenomenal. But yeah, and working with these luminaries whose work I'd admired for such a long time, and honestly, like, arriving at the castle, I felt, this tremendous sense of imposter syndrome. Like, I don't belong here. I fundamentally don't deserve to be working alongside these people whose work I've seen and loved. People like B. Dave Walters and Thor as well, and Beth the Bard, and Chris Haitley. And literally within a minute, I stepped in, and Chris was like, "So, what campaign are you running?" And I was like, "Oh, it's like a Venetian campaign." He just fixed me with this look. It was like, "Come with me," and he just took me down to this literal dungeon, and there was all of this Venetian terrain, and he was just like, "Take what you want, just use it." And from that moment onwards, there was just like this. And yeah, and the players were incredible, but like the long nights and the conversations that I were having with these these real inspiring creatives in the space who I now count very fortunately as, very, very dear friends. It was very much a week where it's a trial by fire, and you are so buoyed up by those around you, and I felt so loved and supported through all of that. So yeah, an incredible experience. Exhausting.
One that you would do again?
I should say. Well, I have to. I'm booked in for April, so yeah. But no, absolutely. Like in a heartbeat, in an absolute heartbeat.
That's good to know.
Like incredible. Yeah.
So speaking of April, let's chat a little bit about the future, so that you can eventually go to sleep. Let's talk.
It's only midnight.
Let's talk future. Before we do, I do like to just remind the chat that if you have questions for either Ed or I, you can redeem a ask a question channel point redemption. It goes into a list, that way it doesn't get missed while we're chatting to each other and ignoring chat. And then I'll answer all your questions at the end. So, future things. What's the immediate future for Edward Spence? What you got in the next few months to years?
Immediately, so next week, I'm going out to Gen Con. So off the back of working with Jasper, the other thing that came out of that was he said, I have an idea for a game. You want to just like come around mine for a weekend and we'll just like shoot the shit. And we walked away from that weekend with the foundations of a game, which we are now taking to Gen Con. So we will be there next week, premiering Force of Extinction, which is our survival TTRPG drawing on sort of big kaiju B movies, and it's a ton of fun. We're going to be running demos every day, and we're doing a live show on the Saturday with Jasper, one of the other writers, Chad Pytel, Jeremy Cobb, and Daniel Ranford as well, which will be tremendous. And I'm going to be on a panel there as well, talking about sad storytelling and why it's so important, and why there's such a upswell of it recently. And yeah, then after that, we have a new season of Paradise Lost, which is Wounded Warrior Project's Electric State series, which has been such a delight to work on. And I'm also going to be at PAX Unplugged, but I can't say why yet, I don't think. But I will be there. And I have another podcast project coming out soon, which, again, I don't think I can announce. I find it so frustrating when people are like, but I have an NDA. I'm genuinely not sure when those things are being announced. But they will hopefully be so soon. But I have a whole bunch of stuff. And games coming out. I am a game designer, and the company that I work for, War Cradle, we brought out a new miniatures game last year called Armored Clash, which has won a couple of awards, and it's I know I'm very biased, but it's a lot of fun to play. And we have a brand new game coming out towards the end of the year, which is a brand new edition of a naval battle game called Dystopian Wars, which we are currently in the graphics handover stage of, and it's so much work, and it is looking astonishing. Our graphic designers Gianni and Lauren have done above and beyond, just incredible work. But yeah, that's it. I swear.
And then I didn't hear PAX Australia on there. So when's that going to happen?
Look, man, tickets to Australia are real expensive.
Yeah, I know. I live in New Zealand. Our closest neighbour is a 3-hour flight away. Anytime I have to go anywhere, nobody ever fucking comes here. I have to go anywhere. We're talking thousands of dollars of flights.
And you literally live in Middle Earth. Why is no one going?
Right. We managed to get Will from D&D Shorts. He came out to collab with Viva last year to do some cross promo of his Ryoko's Guide to the Yokai Realms, and that was excellent. It was really good of him to make the trip. But yeah, long way for people to come out here. So at the very least, I can hope that people will make the effort for PAX Melbourne, PAX Australia, because then I can meet up with some folk there without having to go to the States.
I mean, I'd love to. I miss Australia. Like my mum is from Australia originally, so when we still had family out there, like we'd travel, and this was when things were a little bit less expensive. But yeah, we would travel out there quite a lot. I think the last time I was out there was 16. I remember that. It was the first time I'd experienced heartbreak. I was coming off my first breakup and went out to little 16-year-old Ed.
Yeah, I remember that when I moved out here at 18. I was in a similar position. Just moved out to New Zealand and left behind heartbreak, essentially. Yeah. Our younger days. Wouldn't change it though.
Younger days.
Part of what makes you who you are. AJ's just reminded me in chat that she's convinced Iffy, who is one of the guest stars at PAX Australia this year, to be on a panel. So if he's going to be, because he was obviously in Castleton as well, Iffy Wadiwe, and so he's going to be engaging with the panels there, which is really cool of him.
Perfect.
So
Iffy is great.
We're talking further future then, not immediate future, like long-term goals. What are we aiming for? What's your blue sky ideal ideas of what you want to be doing?
I think I've been thinking about this quite a lot. Because actual play isn't going away. Actual play is here to stay. And I think the people who are working on it now are the people who kind of learnt through trial by fire. Like they learned, like, how does editing work? How does marketing work? All this sort of stuff. They kind of like built it from the ground up. And I really, truly believe in, especially with things being as expensive as they are and things being as difficult as they are for so many people, making the process of getting into this industry and this medium should be easier.
Right.
And I think I've been thinking a lot about basically what are we leaving behind for whoever's coming up next? Like, what ladders are we leaving?
Right.
And I think a big goal for me, be it next year or the year after, I'm not entirely sure, but I want to create a repository of knowledge for folks, be that in the form of like tutorial like videos, you know, curated from various creative voices like around the space, and like sort of advice on how to put out casting calls and how to run a session 0 and how to like where you can find free like royalty-free music and sound effects and things like that, or if you have a budget, like how you should be. And there are so many voices in the space that are so well versed, because they're not just the ones who have learned how to do that, they're the ones who have literally formed those foundations that we are building our industry on. And I think I would really love to help pull all of those voices together to create some kind of like repository of wealth of knowledge for the people who come behind us. And I have some thoughts about like how that would work, but I think chiefly and first and foremost, it's free, like, and it has to be, because you know I think art should be, and knowing how to get into art should be free as well.
Yeah.
But that's kind of it. I mean, other than that, like, my answer is unfortunately a very boring, I just want to continue telling stories with good people. I truly think that is it. And I want to create stories that linger after the fact and mean something, right? And resonate. Yeah.
It's a good answer. boring you may think, but I think it's all we can really ask for in a person is like to continue to do what they want to do, whatever makes them happy, whatever brings joy to others, and to keep telling stories. It's one of the oldest things that we've ever done as people, is telling stories. That and prostitution, right? That's what they say.
Well, no, absolutely, and I'm
acting is the second oldest profession. So yeah, there's a reason that it's been around for so long. There's a reason that people keep doing it. It is a necessity of humankind, I believe, to tell stories. So I will start asking the questions that have come in while we've been chatting, and see what people have had to say. Centauri asked, excuse me. Centauri asked, everyone knows that the trope about the party adopting Bobo the Goblin. As a DM, what is your favourite NPC that you've created?
I mean, Granny Fungus is definitely up there. Yeah, I think it's Granny Fungus. I mean, look at her.
She's pretty great.
Look at her! She's wonderful!
How did your that sort of reminded me of a question of like voice acting. How do you do with your NPCs, and what's your techniques for remembering what their voices are when it's someone you've just created?
If it's someone I've literally just come up with on the spot, I will usually I'll usually just write a little note where I'm like, raspy American, there we go. And then if there is a chance that I'll come back to it later, like I'll go back and flesh it out a little bit more. But no, I mean, in terms of voices, like growing up, I was so uncomfortable in my own skin. I truly wanted to be anyone else. Not to get too real, but yeah, and a lot of that came about through mimicry, and like repeating things verbatim from like films and TV, and like mimicking voices, and I think honestly, like if I'm alone in the house, I will just practice voices, often like voices for NPCs I've not yet created, and then that is the repository that I'll draw from. And yeah, Granny Fungus did kind of spring out of nowhere, though, I remember. But God, I love her. She was special. I liked her a lot. She was lovely.
Yeah, she's great. I do love when you come up with a character you're like, okay, this isn't going to be coming back. Thor asks, our mutual friend Thor asks, everyone loves Ed. Let's make him blush. Why do you, Rob, think that that's the case? And what can the rest of us learn from that? An excellent question, Thor. Let me get in depth here and see what we can do to make Edward feel uncomfortable. Let's start.
It is very warm here, so I will say if I'm
the blushes from that, and not from what I'm going to say. Okay, let's start superficial levels and get deeper. For start, you're an incredibly attractive guy, very handsome.
Oh, well, thank you.
Very handsome. You also have incredible fashion sense. So whenever I see you dress, like when we met up in the UK, loved what you were wearing. Worked. Like, see you from afar. That guy's handsome. Then we get into like you meet him. Then you meet him, right? And you meet him, and you this is my time to shine. I've got to make you feel uncomfortable as possible. You can't keep deflecting all of this thing. Then you meet him, you start talking to him. He's got a wonderful voice, very calm and soothing, and very welcoming as well. And then we get down into the deeper levels, and as you talk to him, you realise he's very intelligent, incredibly well-learned and intelligent, educated guy. Not just from the voice. It's not just tricking you into thinking he's educated because he's got one of those educated voices. He's got very clearly got a lot of logic and rationality and reasoning in his brain there. Then you get down into the deeper levels. As you talk to him more, you realise he's also a very kind, compassionate and caring person who actually wants to listen to you and genuinely is interested in what you have to say and will throw it back to you, as you guys have seen for the last 2 hours as we've been talking. He's genuinely open in the conversation to both ends and is not worried about just taking it all for himself or deflecting it all onto you, but is wanting that balance of a learning something about you. And then you start playing a game with him and you realise that he's an incredible storyteller with some incredible characteristics, is not shy about putting on some over the top character because it's right for the character. It's right for the moment. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm referencing a certain particular character that we saw in Castleton, and I'm not going to spoil anything about it, but you should definitely go and watch the entire arc of that character, because as a storyteller, fantastic story. Goes from beginning, middle, and end of this particular character and is told wonderfully. And I could go on, but I think there's a lot to go on there. Ed is a fantastic person, and I'm glad to know him. That's why I think it is, Thor. I hope that answered. I hope that answered your question, Thor.
That's very, very sweet, very kind, and I'm in my accepting compliments era.
Good,
so thank you very much.
It's hard to get to that era, kind. Right? But
it's so hard. I hate it. But thank you, truly. That coming from you, that means so much. So thank you.
Winter's Tales asked, what is the most surprising difference you've found that you've both found for being home games versus actual play?
That I don't have time for home games is probably the sad
right, unfortunately.
I don't know if it's the same for you, but I love playing in home games, but here's the thing. I'm usually not asked to play in them. I'm asked to run them.
Right.
And that is, and it's interesting. I remember like a friend of mine, for his birthday, he was like, please can you run like a one shot for me? I was like, absolutely, I would love to. And I showed up and I was like, I need to preface this, because he was like, he would always show up to my streams and it would be so lovely and it's so supportive, but I had to kind of clarify. I was like, the Ed you were about to get is not that guy.
Not the Ed.
I'm the kind of guy who's like, I don't fucking know. I've not really prepared for this, like, you know, which runs so antithetical to the way I like to do things. But yeah, I mean, do you have time for like? Obviously, you have the home game.
I've got my.
You are paid for that.
I've got my paid private games, and then I've got my home games. Home games I haven't played in. I don't remember the last time I played in a home game. Nice. The last time I ran one would have been a long time ago. Interestingly, I just had a reason to message that group. The first home game that I ever ran from like 9 years ago when I first started the same campaign, just ongoing, and has taken lots of hiatuses along the years, but is still not a thing that any of us are refusing. We're all refusing to call Time of Death on it because it's such an amazing game, and we love the stories, we love the characters. So like we'll take huge gaps of months, if not years, and then come back and be like, maybe we should play again. And that's currently happening. Just the other day, I had reason to message that group to ask them something about a lore thing, a character name it was, because all my stories always take place in the same world. And so they're all interconnected, and so there's an area of Twitch Tales that I'm running at the moment where they've gone into an overlap with this group, and they met a character, and I could not for the life of me remember what that character was called. Tried for ages, eventually admitted defeat and messaged the group and said, hey, do you remember what your NPC girlfriend's father was called? And literally as I pressed send, my brain went Hohenheim. And I was like, you fucker! I've been waiting. I've been trying to remember his name for so long, and it's doing that irritating brain thing where it goes, it's here. Not gonna. This is it. Nope, not gonna tell you. You know that I know it. You know that I know it. And I was like, I can't bring it to mind. The literal second, not even exaggerating, the literal second I pressed enter and sent the message, my brain went Hohenheim, and I was like, yep, Hohenheim Littner. That was his name. Cool. But that thankfully got us chatting again because people were talking about the characters and talking about, I miss this game and this and that and the other. And then I was like, you know what? Who's available on Sunday? Let's start playing. Let's just play it again, because I don't give myself time to play these home games. I do miss the characters. I think now I'm at a more comfortable place in my DMing that I can approach it with a little less stress about having to do everything perfectly. Because I know that it's a home game, and I know that they'll all accept it for whatever it is, even if I'm not perfect and I haven't prepared a whole bunch for it. It'll just be an enjoyable time. So I am starting to play again as of next Sunday, I think. But it'll be the first time I've played a home game in a year at least, I'd say, maybe over.
Do it for the both of us, Rob.
Right. It's who's this? Thor Knai? I don't know who that is, but that's another question. Thor. Yes.
God damn it.
Who in Los Angeles do I have to beat up for you to come back and hang out? That goes for both of you. I've got you.
So I am actually gonna be there at the end of this year, because last year I did this. I was in PAX Unplugged, and then I spent some time in LA afterwards. And I'm probably gonna do the same thing again. So you can bet your perfect ass, Thor, that I will be there, and we're gonna meet up. Otherwise, I'm gonna be real sad. I'm gonna get real sad about it.
For me, unfortunately, Thor, without devolving this talk into something that will anger and frustrate me about the state of the world, to put it simply, I have sworn off going to the States for the foreseeable future because of the way that it currently is, and I am incredibly upset about many of my friends that live there and for what they're having to live through. But I just can't, in good conscience, or even feeling safe. I can't travel to the States anytime soon. I am far too outspoken about their current regime, and I would not feel comfortable entering the border of the States for a while. Which sucks for things like conventions and stuff that I'm happy to go to normally, and all of the friends and content creators and colleagues and stuff that I have out there. But hey, there's plenty of other places in the world where we can meet up instead. I can find myself in Canada maybe, or Mexico, or hey, come to New Zealand, come to fucking PAX Australia. I'll meet you guys there instead. Madrid asks, does Ed have a podcast? Do you have anything where people can listen to your work?
Well, the trouble is, so with the recent Twitch restrictions on storage, a lot of the shows that we worked on with Wounded Warrior Project, we've kind of had to cull. So we are finding a home for them at the moment. I can say, however, that our Shadows of Gotham series is saved there in its entirety. So if you fancy seeing a 7-part series set in one of the best fictional cities of all time, with a truly incredible cast, you can't go far wrong.
What's the Twitch channel?
I'm going to Brave Chat, and I'm going to link it. I'm going to link it real quick. Here we go. So if you scroll down a little... Oh, chat rules. Don't be a dick. Don't be a dick.
That's my chat rules. Don't be a dick.
Oh,
there we go.
Moderator deleted my message. If you want to post a link, ask one of the mods.
I got you. It is Wounded Warrior Project. You can head over to twitch.tv/Wounded Warrior Project, and the Gotham series is saved there if you want to check it out. Is that what you'd say is one that you are most proud of? If somebody wanted to introduction to your work, what
I would
actual play would you start
I would
on?
say if you wanted something nice, light, and digestible, Beyond the Brook, I would say, which is all on YouTube.
It is indeed. I pulled up while we were talking just to have in the background as well. I was like,
this is what goddamn professionalism looks like.
I was like, I want to make sure that I can find it because you've referenced it, and if I can't find it, then I'll have to ask you during the conversation, hey, how can I find this? But it was there, and I was like, cool, that means I can watch it later. Rob doesn't play by his own chat rules. Yeah, I'm just a total dick because I can, because I'm the one who made the rules.
But yeah, no. So I would say probably Beyond the Brook. It's also very quick to watch. This is the nature of live stuff. Is it's usually longer, especially with charity, because you're trying to earn as many donations as possible. Whereas Beyond the Brook, it's hour-and-a-half episodes, super cute, very compelling, and also kind of sad as well. The ending made me cry a lot, and that doesn't often happen as a GM, honestly. But yeah, it made me very, very emotional in the best ways. So that, and if you're looking for something a little more pulpy, go over to RP Geeks. They are a British D&D channel that mix science and roleplay, and I ran 2 series for them. Actually, I ran a 2-part Good Society game, which is basically Jane Austen role-playing game, but we set it in space because of science, called Universally Acknowledged, and then we did another series called Orbital Blues Black Star, which is using the system that I mentioned earlier about sad space cowboys, and it is very sad, very space, and very cowboys. So
nice.
Very cowboys. So yeah, I would recommend those probably. Yeah. So
Cool.
Shadows of Gotham, Beyond
Definitely
the Brook,
good.
and
Good.
Orbital Blues Black Star.
Good recommendations. So check them out, everybody. Fancy Unicorn asks, what is the one thing you would want to do or play that you haven't had the chance to do so yet?
Ooh.
For me, I haven't ever played Fate. I haven't played the Fate system before, and I want to give that a go just to see how it works, see what the mechanics of it are and such.
Because are you very much like a kind of mainline D&D like that?
Mainline D&D, yeah. Because I know it so well, and like when I'm running games, it's usually D&D. But I'll play a whole bunch of stuff. I've played Pathfinder. I haven't run one. Oh no, I have run a 3-shot on my YouTube channel for a Pathfinder. I lost a bet. So I had to learn Pathfinder. So I've run Pathfinder 1. I run shit ton of D&D, 5e, 5.5, and kind of my own amalgamation of whatever my rules are. I recently just filmed a Halloween one-shot for the Viva guys, in which I use Dread as the main system, the Jenga Tower one. I've done a Call of Cthulhu-esque sort of a game with them before as well for another Halloween special a couple of years ago. I've used my own homebrew systems of D6 systems and stuff. I actually made my own TTRPG as well. It's a one-page RPG called Werewolves, nominated for a Crit Award this year. Yeah. Best one-page RPG.
Okay.
So although I won't be able to maintain my best dungeon master of all time in this life and the next for all eternity award, which I'm pretty sure is the title of the award. I will hopefully win best one-page RPG for Werewolves. It's a silly little pick up and play.
Golden Wolf.
Yeah, exactly. Silly little pick up and play where you are all children who accidentally turn into dogs at inopportune moments, and so it's called Werewolves, as in we are wolves, werewolves. And yeah, you roll a d6 to decide what kind of a kid you are. Are you a sporty kid? Are you a maths kid? Are you a whatever music kid? And then you roll a d6 to decide what type of dog you turn into. Are you a were-chihuahua or a were-Great Dane or a were-Rottweiler or whatever? And each of them comes with like a little tag, and then you just roll a d6 for pretty much anything you want to do. And you've got like a success number that every time you succeed, the number gets higher, and so it gets harder to succeed in future. And every time you fail, it goes lower, so it's easier to succeed again. So there's like it balances out the snowballing. And if you've got a series of bad luck, then you're guaranteed to succeed eventually. So it's a fun little game. It was. I've run it a couple of times on my channel for charity, raising money for Auckland Puppy Rescue, and it was it was a good little thing. So I'm no stranger to other RPGs, but I tend to stick with D&D just because it's what I know best.
And it sells as well.
Yeah,
that's
it's the Kleenex, right? It's the
Sure.
brand name that everybody knows.
But yeah, I'm looking at my shelf now. I'd love to try Die. Die is, I mean, the comics are incredible anyway. But yeah, I'd really like to try that. I have an idea for an Alien miniseries that I'd like to do. And Inevitable. I do actually have something with Inevitable coming up. It's basically off. It's great. Let me hang on. So it's basically Arthurian knights, but they're all cowboys.
Ooh, cool.
And basically, it's essentially the Dark Tower, the roleplay game.
Right.
But it's by a British company called Soul Muppet, who are great. They recently released a new game called Paint the Town Red, which is about being a very sad vampire. That is another thing you can hear me in, which is a podcast. So My First Dungeon, who for my money are putting out some of the most interesting and exciting audio actual plays at the moment. They're based in New York, a terrific team, but they put out a Paint the Town Red miniseries, which I am in, along with a number of other phenomenal performers. So you can also check that out. But yeah, so I would say Die, I think, is probably
Die is another one that I would love to play at some point. And as a sort of a teaser, I suppose, a teaser exclusive announcement, I'll say, I won't say much about it, but I'll say that there's a reason that I just picked up this.
Interesting. Okay. Very fun.
So I had this sent to the Viva La Dirt League guys, and they gave me this, and I was like, cool, I'll take that. And that is all I'll say about it.
I wonder what you could possibly do.
Possibly what that could possibly mean.
Have you had a?
I've run a version of it for a one shot that I ran with them called Honey, I Shrunk the Peasants, where everybody just got shrunk down in the tech store that their tech store series that they run, and I used the Dagger Heart mechanics loosely in that, so it'll be good to run it as an actual proper game. Madrid, at some point with some people maybe. Madrid asks, what is your favorite character to play? I don't know if you're meaning specifically like character class, like what's your character build, or what sort of type of character you go for. But I guess answer it how you like.
I mean, when I am lucky enough to play, I don't know, they're usually quite sad characters. But yeah, I think as a GM, I've got a I mean, I love villains. I really enjoy villains. Mm-hmm. But I think that's because I really enjoy providing obstacles for players. But yeah, I and also I don't know. There's something about a very human but very deliciously evil villain. Yeah. With depth, but there is something very fun about just playing an irredeemably evil character as well. Yeah, I don't know. I keep on thinking about the kinds of characters I like to play, and honestly, I keep coming back to so one of our pre-recorded vignettes. I was lucky enough to be able to put my stamp on the Joker, and I was like, right. This is delightful. And there is nothing redeemable about this character at all, and there's something quite, dare I say it, freeing about that. But yeah. But how about you?
I mean, it comes back to why I love being a dungeon master, and the whole thing about what I loved about acting as well is I love to play them all. I love to have the variety of it. I love to know that I can play different roles and switch between them instantly. Like, they could be in a scene where they've got an NPC that's joined them for the party, and he's an adventuring, good, noble, smite all of the evil kind of character, and they walk into a room where the evil guy starts monologuing, and then they inevitably force the two fucking NPCs to start talking to each other, and you're forced you're forced to have a conversation with yourself as two different characters, as always is the case. But I love that, the ability to switch between them and stuff. One of my favorite types of villain NPCs to play are hags. I love hags, and I go to hags quite often because they're so vile and, as you say, irredeemable. They are incarnate of evilness and maliciousness, and they hate beauty, and they strive for hideousness and malice, and they get off on seeing other people's misery, and they're sometimes I love to throw monsters at my players that are forces them to an ethical dilemma of this guy thinks he's doing the right thing, and is it right to kill him just because he's misguided? And I don't know if this is. I mean, we are paid to kill it. He is an orc, but is he redeemable orc? And then sometimes it's good to throw a monster at them that they don't have to do any of that, and they're just oh, she's evil. She's killing children and skinning dogs. We murder her. There's so black and white, and sometimes
what's your
mix between
favorite kind of hag?
For me, it would be green hags or forest hags, the illusionary ones, and the ones that kind of mess with you through manipulating the wording of what you're asking for, and like just force you through misery to have to make a deal with them, even though you know full well that you shouldn't. Not like trick, like a devil tricking you into making a deal, but like saying like, oh, you've come to me because you've got no other choice. Those kinds of hags. Yeah. I killed two player characters in a huge fight at one point, and they knew that they had a druid guild nearby that could cast reincarnation, but reincarnate takes a lot of costly herbs and incense and stuff, and so they could only do one of them. So again, give them that moral dilemma of like, shit, which of our two party members are we going to reincarnate? They brought one of them back. He was a lizard folk that came back in the body of an elf, and so he fucking hated it. Fantastic role player. We really lent into it and was like, what is this squishy body that I don't have I don't have claws, I don't have big teeth anymore? What is this? And he's like, oh, that's called taste. You're tasting food now. And he went on this whole character act for several sessions until eventually he managed to get his lizard body back. But yeah, it was a whole thing for him. The other one was like, we don't have a way to get him back because the druids have run out of all of their incense and stuff. It's like 1,000 gold piece worth of incense and herbs and stuff. So they're like, we can get it, but it'll take a while. It'll take like months for us to regain all of the stuff that we've got, grow it all back. And one of the party turned to the rest and went, I mean, there's always Auntie. And they were like, no. And he's like, what choice have we got, man? And so they went back to Auntie. And her thing, I really enjoyed her thing, was just like, she would grant you the wish exactly as you wanted it. She wouldn't monkey paw it. She would give you what you wanted and then show you how, and then enjoy basking in how you didn't think it through and how you didn't think about the consequences of why you wanted it. So it's not that she's twisting the words and being like, you said $1 million and I've given you $1 million doll hairs. Not that kind of hag. She's like somebody in the village that they passed through when they first met her as an NPC. Somebody in the village was like, all like, I think her face was all disfigured from like acid and stuff because she was kind of unnoticeable and hated that people didn't like her. And so she went to the hag and asked to be the most beautiful person in town. But then she was, and then she started getting all of the attention from every other guy, and so people started like cheating on their wives, with like going to like falling in love with her and leaving them, even though she didn't want it, because she was now getting way more attention than she'd expected to from her wish. And so the other people in the town got jealous and like beat her up and threw acid on her and stuff. And so it was like that kind of thing. The hag loved being like, oh, you want to be the most beautiful person in town? Yeah, there it is. I'm not going to twist it at all. I'm just going to make you the most beautiful person in town, and then bask in knowing that you haven't thought this through and all of the possible downfalls that can come from that, and various other things. There was lots of like little hints in that town as to like the ways in which this local hag had fucked them over. And so they went to her and they went, we're going to ask her to bring our friend back to life. And so they thought it through, like, how are we going to word this? How are we going to ask it? What are the possible repercussions? Meanwhile, I did the same thing I was mentioning before about the previous character dying, where I'm jumping between them and showing him what it's like to be in the afterlife, and his soul has moved on to the next plane, and he's starting to blah, 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 and he meets with his family in like his ancestral home, and he's a dwarf, so he's big on like the dwarven family cultures and stuff. And he meets with his family. He meets like some great aunt and some old long lost whatever. I jump back to them. They've arrived at her village to ask her questions. I jump back to him. He walks into this like mining operation in this afterlife world, and he meets his sister. His sister who died as part of his backstory, like an integral part of his backstory. His sister who sacrificed herself to save him. And he's like, oh my god, I finally get to say everything that I wanted to say to my sister for so long, like all of the thanks. And then I jump back to them and they ask her to bring him back. And then I jump back to him. And just as he's meeting her and hugging her, and she says, hey, I've got something important to tell you. That day when the when the hobgoblins attacked, there's something I need to tell you, something I need to come clean about. And I guess it doesn't matter now that you're dead. And then he feels this hag's her face turned into this hag's face and went, you're coming with me, and grabbed his soul and just resurrected him, brought him back to life. All of his friends are going like, yay, we got him back to life. And then I gave him the character, because they're all incredible role players, so I knew that he'd lean into it, and I checked with him ahead of time, like, you okay with if I kind of fuck with your character a bit here? And he goes, oh, absolutely, like, fuck my shit up, man. And so I gave him the personality trait, or the flaw or whatever, to put on his sheet of, since tasting heaven, beds are now scratchy, food is bland, nothing is interesting. because he got pulled back from heaven, and not only that, but like he got pulled back from like meeting his sister and being able to finally have that closure with her, and that was the way that it's like, yep, I'm going to give you exactly what you asked for. I'm going to bring him back to life. And so that's the sort of shit I love about hags. Those kinds of hags.
Yeah, there's something about social encounters which I think, I don't know, not that they're more interesting than combat, but I think you often, like, those are the things that test the party a lot more, I think. Like, yeah, we at D&D in a Castle, there was this one moment where one of the other GMs, B Dave, came and literally played a god in the setting, and came in and offered, and I prepped him before and was like, I need you to just give the players a devil's choice. That's all you need, and it is totally face value. Like, you can deliver on your promises, and you can prove that. And so he literally came in and he presented his case to them and was like, I can literally help you all solve your problem right now. I just need your souls. That is truly it. That is the bargain here. Yeah. And you're not gonna, like, I'm not gonna do anything with your souls. Basically, all it means is when you die, I have additional eyes and ears everywhere. And that's kind of it. And that's not too bad. And it split the party completely down the middle. Because half of them were like, we need to do this because, like, the city is in danger, and like, we have this MacGuffin. If we give this MacGuffin to this literal god, he can just blink it out of existence. And the other half were like, no, absolutely not. No, we won't do that. And he was like, hey, Paladin, you've lost your connection with your patron. I can reconnect you like that. Like, I can do that. I'm not even asking for your soul to do that. I can just do that. And the Paladin was like, I'm not going to do that. I need to earn that connection back. And it, like, completely split the party. And it wasn't combat or anything like that. And at the end of it, you know, the players were like, whew, like, we went through it in that hour. But yeah, I think there is something very exciting about presenting players with a moral quandary that can't just be, like, stabbed and slashed out of, you know?
Yeah. And again, it comes down to, like, reading your players, knowing them well enough, knowing what they're in the mood for as well. Because sometimes D&D is just escapism, and they just want to turn up because they've had a hard week and they just want to kill some monsters and do a dungeon delve, and that's fine as well. There's nothing wrong with that, but you've got to know that going into it. If every session's that, it's going to get boring. Just like if every session is deep and dark and hard, you might get players going, I can't do it today. I don't have the spell slots to handle that sort of a story today. So, reading your players and knowing what they want, I think, is another very important skill for a dungeon master. Anyway, let's wrap this up because we've got to stop before this ends up being like a 4-hour conversation. One of these people I could easily be talking to until it's like 4 a.m. and not even realize.
I mean, only 3 hours to go.
Only 3 hours to go. Let's go. We can do this. So we're getting to the end of our short rest. Is there anyone that you would like to raid on Twitch? If anybody that you know is streaming currently, I like to give it to the option. Give the option to my guests.
I'm so perennially offline. I don't even know who's streaming.
Fair enough.
But if I will say, however, a couple of channels to go check out. Go check out Three Black Halflings. They've got some incredible stuff going on, and they've recently recruited a new halfling in the wonderful form of Candace the Magnificent, who I believe was on here.
I was chatting with them this time last week. Yeah.
Yeah, Candace is incredible. So go check out Three Black Halflings. If you want some more UK-based stuff, go check out RP Geeks. They are, all of them, delightful. Tales Yet Told as well is another great channel. And sort of aside from stories and such, if you would like to have a very real effect on one of the cornerstones of our community, like I said earlier, Blizzbear has received some quite serious medical news recently, and is currently looking for anything that people can donate. So if you have the spoons and the resources, obviously, good people are good people. and especially now, good people need good people around them. So if you have the wherewithal to do so, I know it would be greatly appreciated. So yeah, that is it, though, I think. And yeah, this has been such a delight, Rob. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It has been a delight. I'll be looking forward to more of these sorts of conversations in the future.
Yeah, I mean, sequel. We'll do long rest.
Yeah, we'll do a long rest. Then we do 8 hours, an 8-hour chat where we just here for the long haul. All right. Well, if you have joined us from Ed's community and this is your first time seeing me, I'm Robert Hartley, GM. I'm most known for being DM for a comedy group, Viva the Dirt League, but I do Dungeons and Dragons trivia, Dungeons and Dragons related content. All of the internet at Robert Hartley GM. You can find me at roberthartleygm.com. Ed, where is there any like universal place where they can find all of your stuff? Have you got like a link tree? Have you got anything that's like your hub? Where's best
Truly
to find
just my actual legal and professional name, Edward Spence. If you search me there, you'll probably be able to find me. I'm Edward Spence on Instagram. I'm Edward Spence on Blue Sky. I'm not on Twitter anymore, and thank God. But yeah, Edward Spence is where you'll be able to find me. I have no centralized area. I am just me, trying my best. So.
Well, we are going to raid into Rin Vixen then, who is another fellow creator from the Castleton space. Rin is doing a Just Chatting stream today. So we'll raid into Rin Vixen. Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. It seems like we've reached the end of our short rest, meaning we can regain a couple of hit points. Maybe we can get back some spell slots for warlocks. We need them desperately because we're like level 2 characters covered in goblin blood. I think we've managed to rejuvenate ourselves, and then we head back off on our mission. What is the mission we're heading out on?
Well, I don't know, but I can tell you I've recovered 1 hit point. So
let me roll mine. What would I be? Probably a wizard. D6. 1 hit point also. 1 hit point recovered. Yeah,
let's go fight some.
Let's fight some wolves.
Let's go fight a hill troll. Giant.
Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. See you in the next one.
Yes, I know this was over 2 hours long, and short rests, as per 5e rules, should be about an hour. But hey, I'm the DM, so I say my short rests are over 2 hours, because you can really get into the nitty-gritty in the conversation.